Chapter 302. The early summer morning was the most beautiful. The morning sun dispelled the night and the cool wind blew the treetops. The sunlight passed through the shaking branches and formed floating shadows on the ground. Everything in sight was clear and beautiful. Early summer. It was the clearest season in the world. Li Tianlan stood by the window of the ward and looked into the distance, thinking silently. Li Beiyan, whose upper body was almost covered with bandages, leaned on the bed and looked at him calmly. The sunlight shone in through the window and fell on Li Tianlan with layers of halos. Li Tianlan, who was motionless, seemed to melt in the sunlight and become dust floating in the light beam, so illusory that he did not exist at all. There was a knock on the door outside. It was gentle and careful. Li Tianlan moved his body and looked at Li Beiyan. Pining Qianxia and Su Chu were both pushed out for a walk by the nurse, and there were only the two of them in the ward. Li Beiyan shrugged, but when he moved his upper body covered with bandages, he immediately grimaced in pain. He took a deep breath, looked at Li Tianlan and said with a smile, "You're really popular." The knock on the door was still going, neither too fast nor too slow. Li Tianlan shook his head. "Unfortunately, it's meaningless." He walked out of the ward, came to the living room and opened the door. There was a very young woman standing outside the door. The woman was very beautiful, but it was the kind of gorgeous beauty that relied on makeup. She wore a short skirt that could barely cover her buttocks and a tight red suspender top, which showed her figure to the greatest extent. Pa's strong fragrance came to his face. Li Tianlan's expression did not change, but his nose twitched subconsciously. The woman wore too much perfume and it was even a little pungent. "Your Highness, I'm Tong Yu. I'm the class representative of the sniper lesson of Class 2. The woman said softly, her eyes sparkling and obedient. She called him Your Highness. This title was a little exaggerated, but it was not groundless. Although Li Tianlan had disappeared for 3 years, his battle in Heaven Capital did not fade in the slightest. Even if he had lost his original combat strength, he still ranked 9th on the divine list and was still the number 1 among the young generation in Zhongzhou state. This was actually not a good thing, but such an identity was enough for him to be called Your Highness. Hello. Li Tianlan nodded with a smile and motioned for Tong Yu to come in. He was the class representative of Class 2's sniper class. This kind of identity was actually very rare. There were dozens of classes in the Sky Academy. The class that belonged only to Zhuang Huayang was Class 1, which was also the most elite class. The class guide of Class 2 was the Enchantress, an expert from the Wang family of Beihai. She was second only to the other half. Tong Yu was the class representative for Class 2's sniping class, which meant that her sniping scores were the best in Class 2. Li Tianlan let her in and even poured a glass of water for her. He did not close the door of the ward. Therefore, Li Beiyan could also hear the conversation between the two. Tong Yu spoke respectfully and obediently. Li Beiyan listened quietly, but his eyes became more and more indifferent. The conversation was very short, less than 10 minutes. Tong Yu said goodbye. Li Tianlan walked into the ward again. "Is it the 5th group?" Li Beiyan asked. Li Tianlan nodded and said yes. No one said anything? Li Beiyan frowned. This shows that they are all very smart. Who is willing to say anything before seeing the final result? Li Tianlan smiled and walked to the window again, looking at the world outside. Fai's eyes were calm and tranquil, but his gaze was so focused that it was almost gazing. Only those who had stayed for a long time in the world of ice and snow that was eternally unchanging in the polar region would know how colorful and varied the world of the 4 seasons were. Li Beiyan shook his head with a sneer. "Stupid. If there is a clear result, will we still care about them?" Li Tianlan was silent and did not speak. Li Tianlan had stayed in the Sky Academy for 2 days. In 2 days, Kunlun City had made it clear that it asked the Sky Academy to find out the murderer of Gu Yunxia. Li Tianlan was the biggest suspect. But now he had become the least suspicious person. The surveillance video of the hospital had been sent to the headmaster's office. All the departments of the academy had investigated. There was nothing wrong with the surveillance video. When Sword of Emperor Path killed Gu Yunxia, Li Tianlan was indeed chatting with Qin Ku in the hospital. Although the hospital was close to the training ground, it was still nearly 2 kilometers away. This distance was enough to prove that everything had nothing to do with Li Tianlan. P but Kunlun City continued to put pressure on Zhuang Huayang. It was said that Gu Xingyun also invited Wang Tianzong to Kunlun City. Gu Yulan, the leader of Jilei Peak, one of the four forces of the young generation, was still alive, but she was seriously injured. It was said that she was likely to withdraw from the final maneuver of the two academies. Gu Xingyun and Wang Tianzong were said to be discussing the establishment of a regional special warfare headquarters throughout Zhongzhou State. The high-level meeting of Zhongzhou State would be held at the beginning of the month in a few days. With Li Tianlan's appearance, there were changes in all aspects of Zhongzhou State. This change was very small and it was only a possibility at present. But a large number of rumors were enough to cover the future of Li Tianlan and East Emperor Palace with a layer of gray. But Li Tianlan was still the young governor of Sai City. It was said that he had a close relationship with the Dongqing clan. With Li Tianlan's return, the future of East Emperor Palace was difficult, but at least it was not hopeless. So in the past few days, many students of the Sky Academy came to visit Li Tianlan. Their attitude was also very respectful. But no one was willing to join East Emperor Palace. Everyone was waiting for the result. They might be waiting for the action of Kunlun City and the Wang family of Beihai. Might also be the result of the final maneuver. Might also be the result of Sai City and the Dongqing clan joining forces to play with Kunlun City and the Wang family of Beihai. Before seeing this, no one would join East Emperor Palace rashly. Their visit was nothing more than an attempt to get closer to Li Tianlan. What do you think they are waiting for? Li Beitian suddenly asked. The final maneuver. Li Tianlan's tone was calm. In their hearts, this should be the clearest signal. Kunlun City and the Wang family of Beihai would definitely take action. Sai City and the Dongqing clan would definitely react. The game was inevitable. In terms of strength, it was also clear who was superior. But it was destined to be a long process, so long that there were too many variables. In the eyes of truly ambitious people, a long time was enough for them to make some decisions that seemed unwise for the time being. The students who could enter the Sky Academy might be cautious, but at least they would not lack courage. But they had to see enough prospects before they decided whether to take a gamble or not. Li Tianlan's return was a signal. But it was obvious that he seriously injured Gu Yunxia with one sword move. Even if he was credited with the Sword of Emperor Path, his current performance was still not convincing. No matter what the mentality of those who wanted to join East Emperor Palace was, at least they would think that East Emperor Palace could give them a future that Kunlun City and the Wang family of Beihai could not. They believed in Li Tianlan but not completely. Especially when East Emperor Palace's strength was greatly damaged, and most of its main forces were seriously injured, they needed Li Tianlan to do something. Phantom Shadow. 3000 World. Countless young experts were about to gather in the final maneuver. But Li Tianlan was alone now. If he could be strong enough to defeat Phantom Shadow and 3000 World alone and stand at the peak of the final maneuver, no one would doubt the future of East Emperor Palace, and more people would join East Emperor Palace. The people who came to visit Li Tianlan in recent days just wanted to get closer to Li Tianlan in advance. If he failed in the final maneuver, there would be no need to say anything. But if he stood at the end and graduated first in credits, then these people would make a clear statement. If I win the final maneuver, East Emperor Palace will have a real start. Li Tianlan said. He did not say what would happen if he lost. He would not lose. This was his unshakable confidence. Can I win? Li Beitian was silent for a long time before he asked in a low voice. Compared with Jiang Shangyu, who had always been very low-key, Li Beitian had personally seen the power of Xianxia during the mission. She was a gorgeous woman who was almost flamboyant. That kind of power was completely unreasonable in Li Beitian's view. Li Tianlan seriously injured Gu Yulan and Gu Yunxia with one sword move. But Xianxia might be able to do it. So he actually understood why the students who came to visit Li Tianlan were reluctant to make a statement. There was one more thing that Li Beitian didn't want to admit, but he had to. Because the mission system of the two academies was shared, East Emperor Palace had encountered Phantom Shadow 3 times during field missions. There was no major conflict between the two sides outside the country. However, every time they competed, Hidden Shadow would always come out on top. But now / Pit was difficult for him, Su Chu and Ning Qianqing to recover before the final maneuver. P what about the final maneuver? P don't worry. Li Tianlong laughed. We will win. East Emperor Palace might encounter countless difficulties and suppressions in the future. But only by winning the final maneuver could East Emperor Palace be qualified to face those. That was his first step in Zhongzhou state. It was his. I don't know how strong Jiang Shangyu is. But don't underestimate Xianxia. Li Beiyan cautiously reminded, there's something wrong with that woman. Li Tianlong frowned. When he was about to say something, a clear beep suddenly sounded. The wristwatch on Li Baitian's hand, which was used to calculate the score, began to vibrate. The list of the first batch of students from the Deep Sea Academy to Huating has been confirmed. Li Baitian whispered. Li Tianlong remained calm and collected. The students from the Deep Sea Academy would be divided into 10 batches and arrive at the Sky Academy one after another in a week. The first batch was undoubtedly the most elite. Since the list of the first batch had been transmitted to the students' communicators, it meant that they had now arrived at the Sky Academy. Xianxia must be among them. Li Tianlong was a little curious. Li Baitian looked down at the list. The first 3 forces were on the list. 3000 World. Ghetto. Blizzard. Then there was the specific list of the 3 forces. The screen on the wristwatch was very small. The list scrolled very slowly. Li Baitian looked at it quietly. The first force to appear was Shadow. Xiangxi's name was at the top. Then a few unfamiliar names began to roll in the Shadow organization. Until the last line. Li Baitian's face changed dramatically in an instant. He subconsciously moved his body, and the gauze wrapped around his upper body was immediately stained with blood. But Li Baitian didn't notice it. Phi's face became completely gloomy. The name on the last line of the list of Shadow continued to roll up. An incomparably glaring name occupied his entire vision. That was the last name on the list of Shadow. The list was still sliding. After Shadow it was 3000 World. That was the organization established by Jiang Shangyu. Li Baitian looked at the list quietly and suddenly felt powerless. This time he didn't need to look at the last name on the list. Because Jiang Shangyu, the founder of 3000 World, was already ranked second. Before him there was also a name. Gu Hans Han. Li Baitian suddenly raised his head. The sunshine outside the window quietly sprinkled into the ward. It was a quiet void. Li Tianlong's figure had disappeared from the ward. There are 2 chapters today and one is before 7 p.m. Chapter 303. Second update. When the first batch of elites from the Deep Sea Academy officially entered the Sky Academy in a luxury bus, the list of the first batch of elites had already spread throughout Zhongzhou state. The maneuver between the 2 academies was a big deal in the first place. Not to mention the final maneuver, even the first 2 maneuvers would have at least 1 director of the decision-making committee and 1 counselor of the decision-making committee on the spot. In addition, some bigwigs of the special warfare system of Zhongzhou state and masters of folk martial arts forces would also be invited. The total number of students in the 2 academies was less than 5,000, but a considerable number of graduates would become the backbone of the special warfare system of Zhongzhou state in the coming years, and the best students would even become influential figures. This could be said to be a maneuver, but in fact, it was fresh blood flowing into the military and special warfare system of Zhongzhou state. No one would ignore this kind of thing. What's more, this was an extremely special batch. This year, there were several young experts whose combat capability was enough to catch up with the older generation before graduation. They were also involved in a lot of historical grievances. The Wang family of Beihai, Kunlun City, Sai City, Dongqing clan, Mount Shu academics, Prince Group, Li family, 3 years. The various forces had long been entangled with each other without making a sound. Each of them was powerful enough to influence the overall situation of Zhongzhou state, or at least the local situation. The final maneuver of the 2 academies seemed to be a fight between a group of young people, but everyone knew that whether the major forces were at peace or at war, whether they were playing or compromising, advancing or retreating, up or down, everything would have a clear signal after the final maneuver. No one believed that there would be no accidents in this final maneuver. But no one expected the accident to happen before the acting began. Li Tianlong, who disappeared for 3 years, returned to the Sky Academy. Wang Xingxiao, the heir of the Wang family of Beihai, joined Phantom. Gu Hanshan, the heir of Kunlun City, took over the 3000 world. The list was passed on at the fastest speed in Zhou State. The list was short, and only 2 names had been added. However, everyone who saw the list felt their hearts pounding. Li Tianlan, Wang Xingxiao, Gu Hanshan. Compared to these 3 names, even the names of Song Ci and Jiang Shangyu were much dimmer. The 3 of them represented too many grievances. It was not that no one had imagined the scene where the 3 of them coexisted in Zhou State, but a fantasy was a fantasy after all. This was a well-prepared encounter. Wang Xingxiao had Song Ci and Phantom with him. Gu Hanshan had Jiang Shangyu and the 3000 world by his side. Li Tianlan. Right now he seemed to only have himself. This was not actually a violation of the rules. At the very least, it did not cross the bottom line of the rules. Both the Shadow Sect and the 3000 Realms belonged to the 2 academies. However, they were still under the name of the other 2 powerful departments. Using the names of these 2 departments to recommend outstanding students to the 2 academies was possible at any time, and it was difficult for the 2 academies to refuse. Moreover, Qin Songlin, the dean of the Deep Sea Academy, was one of the backbone forces of the Special Warfare Group, so he would not refuse. The admission procedures could be completed in minutes. The most important thing was that both Wang Xingxiao and Gu Hanshan were very young. It was not bad for young masters to join young forces. In theory, if the Wang family of Beihai and Kunlun City wanted to stop Li Tianlan, it was possible to put a few half-step invincible realm experts into the 2 superpowers. However, it was clear that they were not that shameless. Li Tianlan received a call from Li Baitian immediately. He didn't say much. After hearing the news, he quietly hung up the phone. Wang Xingxiao, Gu Hanshan. This was a standard way of using one's power to suppress others. Li Tianlan could not replicate such a practice. Although the East Emperor Palace was separated from the Thunder, it was still under the leadership of the Huading Special Operations Bureau and the Southeast Special Warfare Headquarters. Even if he could find a master and persuade Zhuang Huayang, the Southeast Special Warfare Headquarters would not agree. So he could only rely on himself. The list spread rapidly in Zhou State. In the sensation, everyone was looking forward to the strongest competition among the young generation of Zhou State. Compared with the final battle of Heaven Capital, this was the most direct competition among the young heavenly sons of Zhou State. Tit for tat, fire and water. The first group of elites from the Deep Sea Academy was received by Zhao Hafei, the director of the logistics department of the Sky Academy. As a confidant promoted by Gu Yunxia's death obviously had a strong impact on Zhao Hafei. However, he still forced himself to carry out his task. His task was very simple: to lead the elites of the Deep Sea Academy to visit the Sky Academy. The final maneuver was different from the maneuvers of the previous 2 years. The previous annual maneuver was a stage to show individual strength. The 2 academies also chose a small number of the most elite students. There were less than 200 people and all of them were fighting one-on-one. The final maneuver was countless times more complicated. This was a maneuver for all students, involving most of the disciplines of the 2 academies as well as teamwork. It was complicated and detailed. Countless areas of the entire Sky Academy would become the maneuver area. The first batch of the most elite students arrived at the Sky Academy a month in advance to familiarize themselves with the terrain. Zhao Hafei took the first batch of 50 students of the Deep Sea Academy to walk and stop in the academy to watch the various venues of the maneuver. Tactical staff, teamwork and stealth camouflage were integrated. The venue of the maneuver was a simulated mountain forest in the west of the Sky Academy, as well as an abandoned warehouse and teaching building. Firearms control and sniping courses were combined in the shooting range in the east of the Sky Academy. Assassination, reconnaissance and defense courses were combined. The venue of the maneuver was the entire Sky Academy. Kunlun City would temporarily issue tasks. The maneuver of electronic intrusion was in the number 1 teaching building. In addition, there was a mechanical control field, which was a demonstration maneuver without confrontation. Intelligence collection and analysis also did not need confrontation. In the number 2 teaching building, the cruelest one-on-one combat was in the training ground in the north of the academy. Zhao Hafei took the students of the Deep Sea Academy to walk and stop, explaining along the way. His strength was not strong, but the cultivation of the fire-flaming realm was enough to make him energetic all the time. The morning sun was gradually rising and turning into a scorching sun. Zhao Hufei walked on the path of the Sky Academy with a group of students, most of whom were stronger than him. He pointed ahead casually and said softly, "That is the training ground of the Sky Academy, the place of actual combat in the ultimate maneuver. You are all familiar with this place, so you don't have to go there." He wiped the tiny beads of sweat on his forehead and said with a smile, "Well, there is a good restaurant nearby. Let's go to eat first and arrange free activities for you in the afternoon. How about that? Let's go and have a look." A somewhat hoarse but extremely sexy female voice sounded. Zhao Hufei, who had already turned around, turned his head in astonishment. It was the woman closest to him who spoke. She walked quietly in front of all the students, alone. The only one who was qualified to walk side by side with her, Jiang Shangyu, was not here. So she justifiably became the only leader of the first batch of students of the Deep Sea Academy. All the students intentionally or unintentionally kept a short distance behind her. The woman stood in front, a little lonely and a little indifferent. She was a woman with a strange charm all over her body. Her beauty was almost ostentatious, so it became a kind of gorgeous that people did not dare to look directly at her. Gorgeous but not charming. On the contrary, everyone could only sense loneliness and indifference from her. It was a kind of indifference that seemed to take nothing in mind. It was not indifference. Indifference was also an emotion. But it was pure indifference without any emotion. The woman's skin was a little dark, but it did not destroy her beauty. Instead, it made her look a little wild. Silent and wild, gorgeous and indifferent. A complicated woman. A complicated temperament. Zhao Hufei glanced at her, then subconsciously turned his head away. He was a little afraid of this woman. Just like when the students of the Deep Sea Academy faced her. He actually did not want to take these people to the training ground. The #1 platform that was destroyed by his sword was still being rebuilt. Zhao Hufei felt that it was very shameful. He was the director of the logistics department. Naturally, he was responsible for building some facilities on the training ground. But he could not refuse. The woman in front of him said she wanted to have a look, so he had to go and have a look. There was no other reason. Just because she was Xianxia. It's good to have a look. Zhao Hufei smiled a little unnaturally and led the way into the training ground. In recent years, the training ground had been rebuilt. The area of the high platform had been expanded to a radius of 100 meters and a height of nearly 6 meters. It looked broad and majestic. The stone platform did not seem to change, but the inside had been replaced with a large number of alloys, which were absolutely solid. This was the place where the elites of the two academies fought one-on-one. In the ultimate maneuver, all 16 platforms would be activated and soaked with the blood of the elites of the two academies. Zhao Hufei took Xianxia and others to #16 platform. They walked past from the end one by one. Xianxia stared at the tall and solid platform with empty and emotionless eyes. Her eyes gradually fluctuated and the emptiness gradually disappeared. There was a sharp and confident edge in her eyes. This was the eyes of a conqueror, confident, domineering, and disdainful of everything. Here in the Sky Academy, everyone was the object of her conquest. Go to #1 platform. Xianxia said indifferently, and her tone was almost like an order. Zhao Hufei, on the other hand, did not feel any discomfort. He was just a little embarrassed as he led the crowd to stage 1. #1 platform was still in ruins. The alloy customized by the Sky Academy would be delivered in 2 days. What Xianxia wanted to see most was this ruin. She had seen the video of Li Tianlan's attack, but it was not as clear as standing here. Even if there was no sword intent here. Xianxia slowly walked up the ruins of the platform. The students behind her followed in silence. The sword intent on the platform had long disappeared, but some of the sword marks left by the sword energy were still there, intact. Xianxia carefully observed the countless sword marks engraved on the ruins, but she was thinking about the video she had seen. Her eyes gradually became serious, but she was still confident. She slowly closed her eyes and moved forward by instinct. She wanted to stand in the most reasonable position and imagine the specific power of Li Tianlan's sword. There was a low cry from behind. Xianxia opened her eyes and her pupils suddenly contracted. There was a man standing in front of her. The man's appearance was ordinary and he could be said to be handsome at most. He was dressed in white and stepped barefoot on the alloy destroyed by the sword intent and scalding by the sun. He was so quiet that it was almost illusory. Xianxia's heart suddenly jumped. She didn't know how long he had been standing here. She also didn't know when he appeared. Before seeing him, no one even noticed his existence. Li Tianlan. Xianxia took a deep breath and forced herself to calm down. At this moment she subconsciously wanted to step back, but she stopped. Li Tianlan stood silently in front of Xianxia, and his whole person seemed to be completely integrated with the ruins. In Xianxia's perception there were only ruins, and Li Tianlan was almost completely illusory. Illusory was the unknown. Xianxia didn't even feel danger or threat. But Li Tianlan felt the strength of the woman in front of him. He easily determined the other party's identity. Xianxia? Li Tianlan asked. His eyes were calm and patient, like a hunter who had waited for his prey. Yes. Xianxia's tone was indifferent. That's right. Li Tianlan seemed to smile. He said, "Oh." He took a step. No hesitation, no nonsense. The violent sword intent suddenly rose the moment his foot landed on the ground. The sword intent squeezed every space, making an explosive sound. A huge and heavy piece of alloy suddenly soared into the air in the sword energy and directly smashed towards Xianxia. The wild sword energy broke out in an instant without warning. The alloy, like a door, blocked the scorching sun and brought up a fierce wind. Chapter 304. No one could have thought that Li Tianlan would be so straightforward. Xianxia was very clear about her position. She had seriously injured Su Chu and Ning Qianqing, and suppressed the East Emperor Palace in the previous two maneuvers. She knew that she and Li Tianlan would not become friends. But she also did not expect that Li Tianlan would make a move. As soon as he confirmed her identity, the frenzied sword intent had already come from the sky. The huge alloy that blocked out the sunlight was flying in the air. The sunlight became dim. Li Tianlan took a step and his whole person suddenly changed dramatically. It was an indescribable feeling. Before one step it was the real world. Li Tianlan was illusory. He was standing there, but he was as illusory as dust. After one step it was the illusory world. The high platform, the ruins, the trees in the distance, the crowd around, the hot light, everything became blurred in the sword intent. Only Li Tianlan became extremely real. The world seemed to be very small. It was so small that it seemed to be squeezed in by Li Tianlan. In Xianxia's eyes, there was only Li Tianlan's figure that was so real and pure that it had no temperament. This kind of change was too intense. It was like magma suddenly erupting from a dormant volcano, or like violent waves instantly rolling up on the surface of a calm sea. In that instant, the surging gave everyone a sense of danger that assaulted them head-on. Xianxia finally took a step back. Her palms glowed with light. A quaint and dark handle slipped from her sleeve to her hand, and the light was dark and deep. The alloy steel plate that was lifted by Li Tianlan fell down with unparalleled heavy momentum. The sword energy filled the surroundings, and the undisguised killing intent seemed to completely tear Xianxia apart. Xianxia's arms were completely stretched. The dark handle in her hand lit up with sharp and dazzling light in an instant. A slender long saber directly came out of the handle in her hand. The blade was gloomy and obscure, straight as a sword. Only the tip of the blade was slightly raised, forming a small but perfect arc. The slender blade was nearly 2 meters when fully stretched out. At this time it was held in Xianxia's hand, and it was indescribably sharp. This was a long saber that was a little famous even in the dark world in recent years. The name of the saber was Night Curtain. The huge alloy roared. Xianxia held Night Curtain in her hand tightly and raised the saber. The long and narrow blade swept past with an ear-piercing whistle. Amidst the sound of metal colliding, the alloy steel plate that was nearly 5 meters long was suddenly torn into countless pieces by the saber light. Alloy shards flew everywhere. Xianxia held the curtain of night expressionlessly. The sword intent raged around her and her eyes were already empty and dead. It was not until this time that Zhou Hafei, the director of the logistics department of the Sky Academy, reacted. "What are you doing? The drill hasn't started yet." Zhou Hafei subconsciously roared, "All of you, scram." Li Tianlan interrupted Zhou Hafei directly. Zhou Hafei was stunned. His face suddenly turned red and even a little purple. Li Tianlong glanced at him and then his eyes fell on Song Xi. It was a very calm look. However, Zhao Hufei, who was filled with anger, felt as if someone had splashed a bucket of cold water on him. The flames burning in his chest were immediately extinguished and turned into ice. He was still angry. However, he couldn't vent his anger at all. His anger was completely suppressed by his instinctive fear. His mouth moved and he actually took a few steps to the side. Only then did he notice the change in Li Tianlong. The change from illusion to reality was violent and abrupt. At this moment Li Tianlong stood there. His figure was very small, but his will seemed to fill the entire training ground. Zhao Hufei couldn't even find a place to stand. The elites of the Sky Academy subconsciously surrounded him. Li Tianlong was directly shrouded by countless cold eyes. Step back. Song Xi suddenly spoke. Everyone was slightly stunned. Although they didn't step back, they didn't continue to move forward. Among them there were not only the elites of Phantom. Even the elites of the 3000 World and the Blizzard organization were included. Song Xi's prestige in the Deep Sea Academy was evident. You took the initiative to attack. Song Xi clenched the slender and dark curtain of night in her hand and took a step forward. Her appearance was gorgeous and flamboyant, but her lifeless eyes were filled with a strong sense of danger and sharpness. Li Tianlong frowned imperceptibly. He didn't like this woman. It was not only because she seriously injured Su Chu and Ning Qianqing. It was almost an instinctive rejection. Song Xi gave him a weird feeling. Although the tentative blow just now didn't produce any results, it was enough for her to judge a lot of things. The saber in Song Xi's hand was neither good nor bad. That saber was very strong, but Li Tianlong was sure that the other party didn't have a special constitution. She didn't have a single wind vein or thunder vein, let alone wind and thunder veins. Most importantly, he was now completely convinced that this woman's willpower was average. It didn't mean that she wasn't strong-willed. Willpower included many things. One of them was perception. The perception of danger, the general judgment of the enemy. These were all perceptions. Song Xi's perception was so bad that it was completely beyond Li Tianlong's expectation. But her mind was extremely firm. Not sharp enough but firm enough willpower. All these combined made Song Xi look extremely stiff. This was what made people feel most uncomfortable about her. Li Tianlong didn't know how many people could perceive Song Xi's flaws. But he could see it. Jiang Shangyu, who had always hidden his heavenly king heart, could also see it. In fact, his willpower was perfect. This meant that there were too many possibilities. Li Tianlong thought silently, but his expression was still as calm as water. So what if I make the first move? Anyone who offends me will pay the price. Song Xi raised the curtain of night in her hand. The curtain of night was really as gloomy as the night. Even under the scorching sun, the slender blade was still dark and obscure. The blade of the curtain of night pointed at Li Tianlong, and Song Xi's aura suddenly began to rise wildly. Li Tianlong smiled. The only purpose of his coming here today was to find Song Xi. Song Xi sent Su Chu and Ning Qianqing out of the final maneuver. He had to send Song Xi out of the final maneuver. Li Tianlong didn't mind paying the price, but the premise was that the other party had to have the ability to do so. His figure gradually became blurred under the scorching sun. The world was still illusory. Li Tianlong's figure merged into the air like flowing water and completely became nothingness. Song Xi frowned her beautiful eyebrows tightly. She didn't think that Li Tianlong was much stronger than her, but Li Tianlong's strange and erratic maneuverability was her most hated opponent. Song Xi's eyes became more and more lifeless. But the killing intent in her dark pupils was getting stronger and stronger. The scorching wind blew under the scorching sun. There was a subtle sword energy in the wind. Song Xi turned around abruptly along the sword energy. Li Tianlong had already appeared on the number 2 platform hundreds of meters away. He was so clear and real. He was so real that people would subconsciously ignore everything around him. Li Tianlong looked at Song Xi. His voice directly covered the area of hundreds of meters around, grand like thunder. Come here. Li Tianlong's voice was indifferent and casual. 2 simple words, but they were completely filled with careless contempt. This was a very strange tone for Song Xi. She didn't feel angry but laughed. She was extremely beautiful, and when she laughed she was so gorgeous that people couldn't even look at her directly. Here it comes. Song Xi said. The curtain of night shifted its direction and pointed directly at Li Tianlan. The blazing sunlight became distorted in a state visible to the naked eye along with the offset blade. A large area of space shook layer by layer with Xianxia as the center. The air spread like waves. The undulating space enveloped the number 1 platform and kept spreading. The space didn't surge fast, but it slapped outward layer by layer, and when it came to Li Tianlan, it had become a violent roaring tide. The distorted space hit everything with a surging roar, as if it was going to collapse the whole world. Xianxia clenched the long saber in her hand. In the extreme silence, there was suddenly a sharp and high-pitched scream that was enough to pierce gold and crack stones on the number 1 platform. Far away, the blade of the curtain of night suddenly stabbed forward. Thunder and lightning burst out, covering the sky and the sun. This stab didn't seem to use much strength, but Xiangxi's whole body seemed to be carried up by this stab and rushed directly to Li Tianlan. The wind rose. The clouds surged. The whole training ground completely turned into a world of thunder and lightning. Endless thunder shook the whole Sky Academy. One after another, thunder and lightning exploded on the ground. Smoke and dust rose and turned into fog. In the thick fog and thunder, the dark edge of the curtain of night appeared in front of Li Tianlan in a flash, like lightning with the extremely condensed killing intent. Li Tianlan neither advanced nor retreated. In the face of the saber light piercing his head, he just raised his arm. He wore a silver bracelet on his wrist. The silver bracelet was quiet and flowing with light. Li Tianlan opened his 5 fingers, and the space on the number 2 platform seemed to be completely frozen for a moment. There was no frost, lightning, or fire, only the fiercest compression and contraction of space. The whole space seemed to form a wall. The air waves driven by Xianxia whistled and hit the wall. The tip of the curtain of night stabbed directly with the surging waves. The space seemed to be completely still. All the sounds disappeared completely. The world was quiet. Li Tianlan stood motionless on the high platform. Xianxia was in the air, keeping the posture of stabbing forward. The saber and sword had been infinitely close to Li Tianlan's palm. It only needed a few centimeters to penetrate Li Tianlan's palm. But a few centimeters was like a mote. At this moment of almost stillness, the tip of the saber that was about to pierce Li Tianlan's palm couldn't move an inch. The rich blue thunder spread over silently. Xianxia held the saber with both hands. Her body was completely tense and she stabbed forward with all her might. Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows slightly. He closed his open palm for a moment. He opened it again. In the blink of an eye, the sword energy soared into the sky. The space, which seemed to be still, shattered in the most violent way in an instant. On the number 2 platform, all the air around Li Tianlan was torn into the shape of a long sword by the sword intent. Countless illusory and extremely dangerous sword shadows kept rushing up to the sky and falling quickly. Li Tianlan was surrounded by sword shadows. Dozens of swords, hundreds of swords, and hundreds of swords. The sword intent was boiling like water. Countless sword shadows completely wrapped Li Tianlan in it. The sword shadows turned into a curtain. A large sword curtain flew and rose around Li Tianlan. The sword shadows were not for defense. At the same time, they were moving forward layer by layer, attacking Xianxia in front of them endlessly. The ripples like huge waves were all chopped up by the sword shadows. The thunder was dissipating. Only the dark edge was still trying its best to ring out. Xiangxi's dead and empty eyes were getting brighter and brighter, and her pupils were getting darker and darker. In the state of battle, she was with an indescribable madness. The dense sword curtain rotated around Li Tianlan like a flower blooming. A large number of sword shadows fell on Xianxia, bringing out flames one after another on her body. Blood fell on Xiangxi's body. The night curtain still couldn't move forward. The sword intent around Li Tianlan was getting stronger and stronger. His figure became more and more real. The sword intent began to change constantly. The great void sword intent of Mount Shu. The sword intent of Jifeng Sword Raining School. The sword intent of Jade Pool. The sword intent kept flowing. The simulated sword intent was all specious, but the complex and changeable sword intent made the sword curtain around Li Tianlan grow larger and larger. The thunder around Xianxia was almost annihilated. The sword curtain around Li Tianlan had spread to a scale of hundreds of meters. Huge, complex, solemn, covering the sky and the sun. The The sword energy soared into the sky. Xianxia's dark pupils quietly expanded, almost occupying the whole white of her eyes. The slender night curtain shook violently. Amidst the huge sword screen, Xianxia soared into the sky in an instant. The chaotic and orderly sword curtain rushed to Xianxia at the same time. Thousands of swords gathered into a bundle. The sword curtain was like a dragon, mighty and mighty. Xianxia's body was still rising. The next second, the dark saber light suddenly lit up high in the sky. The saber light was like a waterfall. The dark edge spread over the whole sky. The saber light spread and closed. Xianxia's essence, qi and spirit directly climbed to the limit in the shortest time. The dark saber light turned into countless dark lines. The huge sword curtain disappeared in pieces in the saber light. More and more dark lines chased down. Like a frenzied rain. Outbreak. Outbreak regardless of the consequences. This was the essence of martial arts of the Wang family of Beihai. Now it was vividly displayed by Xianxia. Xianxia might not be the strongest of the young generation, but she was definitely the most dangerous person. The combination of instant outbreak and continuous outbreak was the balance of martial arts of the Wang family of Beihai. But Xianxia obviously went to the extreme in the instant outbreak. This meant that she could directly release all her physical strength and unique skills in the shortest time in the most thorough way. Regardless of the consequences. Only the most thorough outbreak. An instant was eternity. The dark saber light covered the sky from top to bottom. Unparalleled. Killing. Destruction. Tearing. Dragon slaying. In the case of absolute concentration of essence, qi and spirit, all the combat power of Wuxia burst out in the blink of an eye. All the unique skills turned into saber light full of killing intent in the slight tremble of the blade in the night. The blade of the night went straight down. The wantonly blossoming blade light destroyed the sword curtain almost like breaking dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Xianxia's killing intent directly broke through the commanding heights. Under absolute concentration she vaguely showed signs of a breakthrough. Li Tianlan still did not move. He let the sword curtain be shattered by the impact. He let the black saber light fall straight down. Xianxia's figure went straight down in the air, wild and decisive. Li Tianlan watched quietly, his eyes calm. The completely crazy dark saber light tore the completely scattered sword curtain all the way down. It was getting closer and closer. 30 meters. 20 meters. 10 meters. The saber light swept across, bringing up a gale. Li Tianlan's white clothes were completely blown backward in the gale. Xianxia could even clearly feel the chill from the white clothes made of cloud silk. 5 meters. Li Tianlan stretched out his hand again. It was still a snap of fingers. But this time, as Li Tianlan flicked his fingers, his palm suddenly formed a weird and complicated emblematic gesture. In an instant, the dark saber light with endless crazy killing intent suddenly stagnated. Xianxia, whose face changed dramatically, had no time to stop. The downward saber light was about to cover Li Tianlan's body. But the saber light went up directly against the air when his emblematic gesture changed. The distance between the two sides was too close. Xianxia's saber had been completely out of control. Countless saber lights almost completely covered her body in the blink of an eye. Li Tianlan looked calm. He didn't know how many people would recognize this move. But it didn't matter. There were other names for this move in the dark world. But in his view this was the 24 moves of sword. A soft but flashing thunder light with texture completely enveloped Xianxia at the moment when the saber light fell on her body. The thunder light appeared without warning. But the moment it appeared, it directly obliterated most of the dark killing intent. The thunder light was soft and deep. What it formed was not a shining electric arc, but a light that flowed and fluctuated like water. It was not dazzling but deep and tough. Not to mention others, even Li Tianlan didn't know that the thunder-shocking realm could change like this. But the water-like thunder light was a step slower after all. A small amount of saber light swept through Xianxia's body, and a large amount of blood directly splashed out, blooming with the thunder light. The blood color and the deep blue intertwined, gorgeous like a flower. Li Tianlan smiled unexpectedly and his smile was cold. The thunder light wrapped around Xianxia slowly dissipated. Xianxia, who was covered in blood, her clothes were torn and her face was pale, but she was still conscious. It was unknown when a slender and gentle figure had appeared on the battlefield. He had saved Xianxia and was holding her in his arms at this time. The two of them slowly descended from the air and landed on the high platform. The high platform was as flat as new. In the fierce battle, the high platform was not even damaged at all. Long time no see. The man landed with Xianxia in his arms. His eyes were calm and gentle. But under the gentle appearance, Li Tianlan clearly felt the fighting intent and killing intent deep in his eyes. If he hadn't suddenly appeared on the battlefield, even if Xianxia didn't die today, she would completely withdraw from the maneuver a month later. The battle was fierce and short. Xianxia rushed to the high platform. Li Tianlan reached out. He flicked his fingers. He flicked his fingers again. The battle was over. Xianxia lost. But in this short and fierce battle, no one thought that she lost so badly. Wang Xingxiao was a step too late. Li Tianlan was also a step too late. The two of them looked at each other quietly, tit for tat. A small number of spectators finally recovered from the battle. Everyone was thinking about Xianxi's almost completely out of control knife light at the end of the battle. That was Li Tianlan's unique skill. He borrowed the enemy's power for his own use. There was a sudden exclamation in the crowd. This is all-embracing collection? Wang Xingxiao looked at Li Tianlan with deep eyes. This was a unique skill famous in the dark world in recent years. It was the unique skill of the Purgatory of Heaven capital. It simulated different sword intents and could be controlled at the same time. All-embracing collection borrowed the enemy's power for his own use. They were all unique skills of the Purgatory of Heaven capital. It's the 24 moves of sword. Li Tianlan's tone was indifferent. Wang Xingxiao smiled. In addition to calmness, there was only confidence in his eyes. You really have mastered the 24 moves of sword. He looked at Li Tianlan thoughtfully. I underestimated you. Maybe you will be a good opponent. Do you want to fight? Li Tianlan asked with a smile. He pointed to Xianxia. Even if it's revenge for her, I accept it. I can do it now. Wang Xingxiao's eyes flickered. He seemed to be tempted, but he finally shook his head. No hurry. He said indifferently, we'll see each other in the maneuver a month later. We need a witness with enough weight to end the grievances between the Wang family of Beihai and the Li family. Li Tianlan burst out laughing. In the penetrating laughter, his figure gradually disappeared from the high platform. Only his voice kept ringing, getting farther and farther away. Solve the grievances between the Li family and the Wang family of Beihai? You're not qualified yet. Wang Xingxiao narrowed his eyes and looked in the direction of Li Tianlan's departure. He didn't speak for a long time. This man is really arrogant. Xianxia leaned in Wang Xingxiao's arms. Her voice was weak and cold. Wang Xingxiao smiled and said softly, he's really strong. Among the younger generation, you're the strongest. Xianxi's voice was firm and proud. Wang Xingxiao didn't speak. He recalled the battle between Li Tianlan and Xianxia. From beginning to end, Li Tianlan had been standing in the same place and hadn't moved. He didn't draw his sword either. Chapter 305. Some people's lives were glorious and powerful, while some people's lives were ordinary. And for a very small number of people, their lives were on the road. It was wandering. It was wandering. There was no purpose, so there would be no end. In June, when the Northern Hemisphere entered the early summer, Australia in the Southern Hemisphere had already ushered in the early winter. The bustling lights shone in the cold night of Sydney. The Bay Bridge bathed in lights was like a long rainbow across the sea. The lights fell on the water, illuminating a large area of water waves, a piece of glazed brilliance. This was a prosperous but cold, almost aesthetically beautiful city. The Sydney Opera House next to the Bay Bridge was already brightly lit. Lin Fengting, wearing a black coat, walked leisurely through the gate of the Opera House and went straight to the Opera Hall. Guests shuttled past him in twos and threes. Lin Fengting's expression was gentle and calm. He walked at a moderate pace. It was a kind of leisure and freedom emanating from his bones, very clear but not infectious. This was only his own mood. The crowd passed by him at different speeds. Lin Fengting was alone and his figure looked a little lonely. The team performing in the opera hall tonight was not famous. At most it was a little famous. The members were not young, but their constantly skilled skills made them stand out in the past 2 years. Lin Fengting first met them in Vienna half a year ago. It was an ordinary but poignant opera. Lin Fengting did not like opera very much, but that performance had touched his heart without batting an eyelid, reminding him of his wife who had died of illness 10 years ago. She was also a woman who liked to travel. So Lin Fengting had been following the opera house for half a year. They did not know each other. Lin Fengting just liked to watch their performance. From Vienna to Germany via Star State into Sydney, the next stop was Melbourne. The opera house's pace was very full, so their pace was very fast. Lin Fengting followed as he pleased. Being in a hurry was also a kind of scenery. The bell rang in the opera house. There were less than 20 minutes before the opera officially began. Stepping on the bell and entering the extremely complex and gorgeous opera hall built of boxwood and birch, Lin Fengting calmly looked for his seat. He had the most ordinary ticket in his hand, and the seat was at the back, not far from the door. Rows of red seats passed by. Lin Fengting slowly moved forward. He took off his coat. A wisp of natural and rich fragrance drifted over. Gentle and empty. This scent was different from any perfume. It was the most natural body fragrance of a woman, and it was unique. Lin Fengting, who had already found his seat, sniffled and subconsciously raised his head. Right next to his seat, a young woman was quietly sitting there, also observing him. The woman was wearing a dark blue cotton dress, and her long hair casually fell on her shoulders. Her sitting posture was elegant and formal, and her back was very straight. It was as if she was not here to watch an opera, but to negotiate. This was indeed a negotiation. The lights in the opera hall were dim. The light obscured the woman's beautiful face, but her bright and beautiful eyes, which seemed to be able to see the starry sky, were now quietly looking at Lin Fengting with a smile. Lin Fengting was stunned. It wasn't because he was stunned by the woman. Instead, it was an unexpected surprise. He didn't expect to see her here. But the moment he saw her, Lin Fengting knew that this was a negotiation. Although he didn't know what the other party wanted to talk about. Lin Fengting thought for a moment. He was a wild crane that stood aloof from worldly affairs and didn't pay attention to the so-called general trend, so he didn't remember the other party's name for a while. It wasn't that he had a bad memory. Strictly speaking, the two hadn't even formally met. He smiled and said vaguely, "Boss Qin, why are you here?" Qin Weibai, who seemed to be everywhere, was sitting next to Lin Fengting's seat. She always appeared in the most suitable place and did what she thought she should do the most. Qin Weibai bowed to Lin Fengting. Her smile was light, but her eyes were full of respect. "Sir is here, so I'm here." Qin Weibai opened her mouth with a smile. She paused and introduced herself. "I'm Qin Weibai." Lin Fengting narrowed his eyes. He took a deep look at Qin Weibai, sat down next to her and said calmly, "Has Samsara Palace become powerful enough to track down an idle person like me?" "It's just an unintentional coincidence," Qin Weibai said softly. Her face flickered in the rotating lights of the opera hall, but people could feel her sincerity intuitively. "If you mind, sir, I'm willing to apologize." "It's not necessary." Lin Fengting shook his head as if he didn't mind this kind of thing. He looked at the opera stage in front of him and said with a chuckle, "Boss Qin, did you come to Sydney to travel or visit a friend?" "I came specially for you, sir." Qin Weibai's tone was soft, neither servile nor overbearing. Lin Fengting frowned imperceptibly. Sitting next to Qin Weibai, he felt uncomfortable all over. Qin Weibai was naturally extremely beautiful. Lin Fengting had seen countless beautiful women in his 50 years of experience. But in terms of appearance and grace, Qin Weibai was absolutely unique. This was an undeniable fact. But sitting next to her, Lin Fengting felt more the cruelty and darkness of the dark world than her outstanding beauty. This was something he had been too lazy to touch. "What's the matter?" Lin Fengting asked calmly. Qin Weibai's tone became softer and softer. She said with a smile, "I want to borrow a sword from you, sir." Borrow a sword from Lin Fengting. Lin Fengting was not famous in the dark world, but this did not mean that this sword was worthless. Only a few people knew what his sword meant. There was silence. Lin Fengting suddenly fell silent. He felt a little strange inside. It was strange that Qin Weibai appeared here. What made him even more strange was her request. His sword could do a lot of things and kill a lot of people. But, Lin Fengting smiled. "I don't think it's necessary for me to lend you a sword." He looked at Qin Weibai without reservation or mockery. He just told a fact. And even if I am willing to lend it to you, can you afford it? Qin Weibai's expression did not change. She said elegantly, we can talk about anything. What do you want? As long as I have it, I can give it to you. That was exactly the problem. Qin Weibai didn't know what Lin Fengting wanted. And Lin Fengting really didn't want anything. He looked at Qin Weibai and suddenly had an idea. He said with a strange smile, I have a son. If I want you to be my daughter-in-law, will you be willing? Qin Weibai didn't change her expression. She didn't even get angry. She just smiled slightly and said, I don't have it. It belongs to my man. Lin Fengting's eyes changed. Your man, he thought of Li Tianlan. The young man who could shock the world with one sword in Heaven Capital. He had collected information about him. He even knew that Li Tianlan had returned to Huiting now. How about I borrow a sword from you for the sake of my man and the Li family? Qin Weibai looked at Lin Fengting with a smile. Her demeanor was perfect. She said borrow. Lin Fengting knew what it meant. He owed the Li family a sword. Qin Weibai also wanted to owe him a sword. They didn't interfere with each other. Lin Fengting looked at the stage in front of him expressionlessly. He wanted to refuse. However, he had too many speculations and curiosity about the Samsara Palace. Before he figured out some things, he didn't want to completely lose contact with the Samsara Palace. But he couldn't borrow this sword. His sword entered the dark world. The Lin clan was equivalent to entering the secular world. So he shook his head and didn't speak. Silence was often a kind of determination. Qin Weibai was still calm. She wasn't surprised by Lin Fengting's attitude. If it were so easy to borrow this sword, she wouldn't have traveled from the north to the south of the earth in person. What do you think of the Samsara Palace, sir? Qin Weibai suddenly asked. Lin Fengting's heart skipped a beat. He was silent for a while, then said with a smile, I don't know much about the dark world, but as far as I know, the Samsara Palace is still very strong. Very strong. Qin Weibai nodded. But it's also very weak. We have the invincible realm experts on the top of the divine list, murderous weapons, experts and resources, but we don't have the foundation. In terms of real strength, it's hard for us to surpass any superpower, let alone giants like the Wang family of Beihai and the Lin clan. She said softly, but her temperament began to change slowly, becoming cold and sharp. Sir, I don't want to be enemies with the Lin clan. The Samsara Palace can't afford to offend a power like you, whether you enter the secular world or come out. That's why I want to borrow a sword from you. Lin Fengting didn't understand Qin Weibai's meaning for a while. He thought for a while, then said indifferently, is there any cause and effect between not wanting to be enemies with us and wanting to borrow a sword from me? Qin Weibai took a deep look at Lin Fengting. Her eyes were deep and bright and her voice became colder. The dark world is chaotic now, but it's not the most chaotic. Lin Fengting frowned. The Wang family of Beihai, the Jiang family of South America, Knights Templars, the Dark Knights, Kunlun City, the Purgatory of Heaven Capital, the Fantasy World, the Heroes Club. The names of superpowers floated out of Qin Weibai's lips one after another. The Guardian Angel of Star State, the Shadow Throne of Europe, the Aborigines of Africa. All the forces are now fighting every day. Even the Polar Ground Alliance is in internal strife. Sir, do you know the cause of this? Lin Fengting frowned and continued to be silent. He really didn't know these, or he didn't know much. The seemingly magnificent general trend had always been something beyond his line of sight. Since the final battle of Heaven Capital, the cause of everything is that the Wang family of Beihai and Kunlun City united against the Samsara Palace, Qin Weibai said indifferently. He was telling the truth. The two superpowers of Zhou State retaliated against the Samsara Palace. The Jiang family of South America, which had suffered heavy losses, wanted to make up for the losses and take revenge. The Dark Knights, which had a good relationship with the Samsara Palace, intervened and provoked Knights Templars. The battlefield continued to expand. In the case of wars everywhere, the Guardian Angel of Star State began to guard the country. Fantasy World of North America also took responsibility. With a sense of crisis, the Jiang family of South America contacted the Aborigines of Africa. So the Shadow Throne got involved. The Purgatory of Heaven Capital seemed to stay out of it, but deity's actions in Annan State held up a considerable part of the energy of the Wang family of Beihai and Kunlun City. This was an unexpected mess. No one could have imagined that it would come to this. Fighting and killing. The flames of war swept the world in just 2 years and there was no sign of it stopping. The original reason was no longer important. The most important thing was that now all the superpowers had no way out. This was the game of the entire Dark World and most of the Invincible Realm experts had been involved. No one knew what the final result would be. But under the huge investment all the superpowers had been in a killing frenzy. Now almost all the superpowers were bracing themselves to hold on. They didn't dare to retreat even if they wanted to. This was really out of their control. What do you want to say? Lin Fengting raised his eyebrows and asked. What I want to say is that now any power involved has lost the qualification to suspend the game. The contradiction has intensified to the extreme. The Wang family of Beihai doesn't dare to take a step back, nor does the Samsara Palace, Qin Weibai said blandly. Qin Weibai said blandly, but the difference is that Samsara Palace has been prepared for this for a long time. From the very beginning we have already expected this situation. Lin Fengting's eyes finally became serious. The Samsara Palace had been mentally prepared for everything today. From another perspective, could it be explained that today's chaos in the Dark World was completely planned by the Samsara Palace? All the superpowers in the Dark World were giants. With the original reason, it was not difficult to deliberately disturb the whole situation. From the moment the Samsara Palace contacted the Dark Knights, the situation had begun to be a little out of control. At that time the Samsara Palace began to fight back. When all the superpowers were most likely to cool down, the Samsara Palace's counterattack was equivalent to sounding the horn of war. So the situation was completely out of control. More and more chaotic. The Dark World was a game of chess. But the Samsara Palace really turned the whole Dark World into a game of chess and even regarded itself as a pawn. It was not too difficult to create such a situation. Any superpower could do it if it planned hard. But such a situation had been avoided by all the superpowers in the past. Because a chaotic situation was not good for anyone. Just like now. Even the Samsara Palace, which had planned everything, did not get any benefit. On the contrary, it suffered heavy losses. So why did the Samsara Palace plan all this? Lin Fengting was deep in thought. Qin Weibai changed her sitting posture, looked at Lin Fengting who was silent and continued, Sir, if I remember correctly, there are branches of the Lin clan in Europe and America, right? And it's a very powerful branch of the Lin clan. Lin Fengting's expression suddenly changed. His eyes suddenly became cold, and a majestic killing intent instantly surged in the opera hall. The Lin clan did not enter the secular world. That was the direct descendant of the Lin clan in Switzerland. The Lin clan had always been free. The direct descendant headquarters almost never cared about how the branches developed. But the branches were part of the Lin clan after all. If they were at a critical juncture. What do you want? Lin Fengting asked coldly. In such a chaotic situation, as long as a clue is needed, the powerful and hidden Lin clan will be involved in the Dark World. It's not difficult for me to do this. Qin Weibai's tone became cold. She wanted to owe Lin Fengting a sword. It was a request, a negotiation and a threat. What she wanted, she had to get it. Lin Fengting's face became more and more ugly. He looked at Qin Weibai coldly. After a while he suddenly laughed. Boss Qin, aren't you afraid that I'll kill you? Lin Fengting asked. His voice suddenly became very soft. If you kill me, you will lead the Lin clan's headquarters into the secular world to fight for countless branches of the Lin clan in less than a month. Is this the result you want, sir? Qin Weibai said calmly. You borrowed a sword from me because you also want the Lin clan to enter the secular world. Lin Fengting's tone was cold. It's not the same. Qin Weibai shook her head. If I want the Lin clan to enter the secular world, I will call you your highness tonight, not sir. Lin Fengting's heart moved and he seemed to be thinking about something. Where are you going to use this sword? He asked softly. Snow country. Qin Weibai said without hesitation. The Polar Ground Alliance was in Snow country. Lin Fengting suddenly understood that the Samsara Palace completely wanted to mess up the whole Dark World. What do you want? At this moment Lin Fengting finally had some curiosity. Me. Qin Weibai smiled softly and said softly, I just want a sword from you, sir. Lin Fengting looked helpless. What he asked and what she said were two completely different things. We are not enemies, he said. Qin Weibai nodded to show her approval. Compared with the Li family, I am more willing to believe in the Lin clan. Sir, I am a madman. If what I said just now offended you, I am willing to apologize. But this matter is very important to me. Lin Fengting's face softened. Is it for Li Tianlong? He asked softly. Qin Weibai just looked at him and did not speak. Lin Fengting sighed softly. Qin Weibai was the biggest decision-maker in the Samsara Palace besides the palace master. It could be said that she had dragged all the forces, including the Samsara Palace, onto the chessboard. Besides that, how much did she do? For Li Tianlong, can a woman really do this for a man? I have 3 conditions. Lin Fengting suddenly spoke. Go ahead. Qin Weibai's eyes instantly focused. First of all, I don't need you to pay me back. I owe Li Tianlong that sword move and I'll use it on you. So we don't owe each other anything. Second, I want to see the master of Samsara Palace. Third, I won't attack the Wang family of Beihai. Lin Fengting said. Qin Weibai instinctively frowned. But Tianlong's sword, you've done so much for him. So what if you take this sword for him? You're his woman, so isn't he your man? Lin Fengting asked. Qin Weibai's face suddenly turned pale and she was lost in thought. A long time passed. She nodded slowly. Sure, he said indifferently. There was only tranquility and solemnity between her brows. Lin Fengting looked at her quietly. He wanted to ask her if it was worth it. But when the words were on the tip of his tongue, he sighed quietly and said softly, Boss Qin, have you ever been happy in your life? Qin Weibai froze for a moment. Her eyes were in a trance. Yes. She said softly after thinking for a long time. In Huating she was happy every minute and second she spent with Li Tianlong. She remembered every word he said, every expression on his face. That happiness was short. But it was enough. Really, it was enough. Lin Fengting shook his head in silence. He didn't know if Qin Weibai was happy. He only felt that Qin Weibai was very tired now. When do you need this sword? Lin Fengting asked. About a month later. Qin Weibai came to her senses and said. So soon. Lin Fengting was a little surprised. He looked at the stage and said with a chuckle, It seems that I have to go back to prepare and adjust my state. It was hard for him to imagine that the war in the Dark World that lasted for 2 years would end in a month. It was also hard to imagine what the result would be. He looked at Qin Weibai with complicated eyes. The number 2 figure of Samsara Palace in front of him seemed to be ready for everything. I'll go to Snow Country in a month. Lin Fengting said. The opera was about to begin. Qin Weibai stood up, bowed deeply to Lin Fengting and said respectfully, Thank you, sir. She stood up straight and went straight to the door without looking at the stage. In the other direction, flaming fire followed them quietly and blindly. Qin Weibai walked in front. Flaming fire was behind her. But her figure was still so lonely. Lin Fengting watched her leave and subconsciously grasped the coat in his hand. It was early winter in June in Australia. The air was cold. It was like a glacier in the polar region. Chapter 306. Just as the Dongqing clan's words carried weight in Zhongyuan, the Jiang family's foundation was also unique in Beijiang of Zhongzhou State. Perhaps the Jiang family in Beijiang had not reached the absolute ruling power of the Dongqing clan in the Central Plains, but in Beijiang the Jiang family could definitely be said to be the largest wealthy family. This was the Jiang family of Jiangshan. It was also Jiang Shangyu's Jiang family. In the past 100 years, the Jiang family had been running Beijiang for nearly 3 generations. If there were no accidents, there would be a 4th generation. As the generations went on, sooner or later, the largest provincial capital in Zhongzhou State would become the Jiang family's backyard. This was a family with enough wisdom and tenacity. Rational, steady and down-to-earth. The changes in the northern borderline in the past 100 years were almost all clearly marked by the Jiang family. The current patriarch of the Jiang family was Jiang Shan. He was one of the members of the decision-making committee of Zhongzhou State, the leader of Beijiang, one of the former 4 spirits of Zhongzhou State, and the former general of 9 regions. This was a real high position and power whether in Beijiang or Zhongzhou State. The Jiang family rose to power in the generation of Jiang Shan's grandfather. At that time the old man did not have any so-called background or support. After he was assigned a job to the northern borderline, he was down to earth and conscientious for nearly 40 years. The old man himself did not have any great achievements, and the peak of his career was only the mayor of a prefecture-level city. However, the old man had left behind a network that could not be underestimated. With the support of the old man, Zhou Xian's father and siblings began to establish a foothold in Beijing. Zhou Xian's uncle entered the Western theater of operations. His father continued to climb his career and finally entered the promotion sequence. Although it was only a deputy position, his power was extraordinary, and he finally entered the eyes of the prince group. His aunt established the family business of the Jiang family. His uncle specialized in martial arts. The four siblings each had their own development. That was the beginning of the entire Jiang family. Another few decades later, the Jiang family began to rise in Zhou Xian's generation. Zhou Xian made full use of the resources accumulated by 2 generations in Beijing and the connections of the prince group. Zhou Xian also lived up to the expectations of the people and continued to advance in this land where the people were valiant. Steady, silent, domineering yet calm and collected. In the span of 3 generations, the Jiang family had become a second-rate family from the beginning, which had no foundation at all, and finally completed the transformation into a first-rate wealthy family. The Jiang family was the soul of Beijing. The Jiang family relied on the northern borderline. This feeling had been accumulated over several generations, and it had become thick and passionate. Zhang Shangyu had been in Beijing for a week, but he never got to see his father. Zhang Shan was very busy. He could be said to be one of the most successful leaders among the previous leaders of Beijing. His daily schedule was full. Zhang Shangyu got the news from the secretary that Zhang Shan had not returned home for nearly a month. But Zhang Shangyu had to wait. He had something very important to confirm with his father. It was almost noon. An old-fashioned Mercedes-Benz slowly drove into the Beijing Council's compound. The number plate of Beijing reflected the sunlight, looking mysterious and majestic. Zhang Shangyu, who had been sitting on the balcony in a daze, stood up and jumped directly from the balcony on the second floor. The Mercedes-Benz slowly came to a stop. Zhang Shangyu walked to the side of the car and opened the back door himself. Zhang Shan, who finally had some time to go home, got out of the car. Zhang Shan was not tall and slightly fat. He was less than 50 years old this year, but his hair had already turned white. His skin was dark. Judging from his appearance, he looked like an ordinary fatty. But this was a very dignified fatty. His expression was calm, and his whole body carried a kind of natural majesty after being in a high position for a long time. He was like the vast land of Beijing, desolate and distant. Zhang Shangyu smiled and called him Dad. Zhang Shan nodded and said calmly, "Let's eat first. I have a meeting in the afternoon." Zhang Shangyu nodded, took the bag from his father's hand, and walked into the number 1 villa of the council's compound. 7 days at home. He knew very well that the real time with his father was only the time for this meal. Zhang Shangyu made a few dishes by himself, and a braised fish was the only meat. The father and son sat at the table and ate in silence like a whirlwind. After the meal, Zhang Shangyu made a cup of tea for Zhang Shan. "What's the matter?" Zhang Shan took the teacup and asked casually. "The final maneuver of the 2 academies will begin in a month. Dad, will you also go?" Zhang Shangyu asked. Zhang Shan took a sip of the hot tea and thought for a while. He shook his head and said, "I'm not sure. I've received the invitation, but I may not have time." He put down the teacup, knocked on the table casually and said, "Gu Hanshan entered your 3000 world?" Zhang Shangyu nodded. His expression was still relaxed, but his eyes became dignified. The news had already spread throughout Zhongzhou state. But for the father and son pair, this kind of news clearly had other meanings. Zhang Shan's thick fingers tapped on the table again and again. After a long time he said calmly, "What's your plan?" "I came home this time to see what your plan is." Zhang Shangyu opened his mouth respectfully. Zhang Shan was silent again. This time he was silent for a longer time. Zhang Shangyu waited patiently. "Is there any progress on Wang Yuetong's side?" Zhang Shan looked at Zhang Shangyu and suddenly asked. Zhang Shangyu smiled helplessly and spread his hands, saying, "Your son is not charming enough. I went to see her several times, but she was lukewarm. I didn't succeed in asking her out to watch a movie or have a meal. I didn't even get close to her within 2 meters. What progress can I make?" "Has it always been like this?" Zhang Shan was also a little helpless. Zhang Shangyu nodded. Although he was smiling bitterly, he didn't look very depressed. "I don't care about her anymore. I heard that she lived with Li Tianlan a few years ago. I've met Li Tianlan. Although he disappeared for 3 years, he has always been the #1 person among the young generation in Zhou state, at least in terms of reputation. Wang Yuetong's heart belongs to someone, so I don't expect to change anything. Jiang Shan frowned. Wang Yuetong had always been one of his targets, but it was not until more than a year ago that Jiang Shan began to act. In the midterm election more than a year ago, Jiang Shan could be said to be a further popular figure. The 3 council giants retired. Except for the position of Dongqing Wudi, Jiang Shan was sure to sit in any of the 2 positions. But the point was that he didn't want to move at all. And it was the prince group behind him that pushed him to take the position. It was a great advancement in power to enter the Hidden Dragon Sea, the center of Zhou state, from Beijiang, but it was not what Jiang Shan wanted. The short-term expansion of power did not have many benefits. On the contrary, because Jiang Shangyu had not fully grown up, once he left Beijiang, the foundation of the entire Jiang family would be affected. Beijiang was everything to the Jiang family. Once Jiang Shan rushed to the commanding heights, the foundation and power that they had built for several generations would have an extremely tragic gap, which was what no one in the Jiang family wanted to see. But it was the prince group that put forward this motion. Jiang Shan was one of the super heavyweights of the prince group. The prince group pushed him to take the position not only because they were worried about the Jiang family that was gradually growing in Beijiang, but also because of the overall consideration. If they pushed Jiang Shan to take a step forward, the position of the top leader of Beijiang could be vacated by the successor of the prince group in advance, and finally strive for a better position and ranking in the next election. This was considered from the perspective of the whole group. And the benefits were obvious. But group interests and personal interests often conflicted. If Jiang Shan didn't move, it would be difficult for the next successor of the prince group to find an ideal gold-plated area. After all, Jiang Shan was from the prince group. Even if he didn't want to move, he couldn't oppose it openly at that time. But at that time he took the opportunity of investigation and quietly contacted the Wang family of Beihai. He didn't hide what he did. He met Wang Tianzong and expressed the hope that he could unite with the Wang family of Beihai by marriage. The objects were Wang Yuetong and Jiang Shangyu. At that time Wang Tianzong said with a livid face that he couldn't control his wicked girl, but he also said that they could contact her first. Soon after Jiang Shan came back, Wang Yuetong entered Yuzhou. During this year she had been working in the General Staff Department as a deputy division level, which created an opportunity for Jiang Shangyu. It was obvious that Jiang Shan contacted the Wang family of Beihai. After the prince group waited again and again, and with the pressure from Kunlun City, they finally cancelled the idea of letting Jiang Shan move. But the rift between the 2 sides had gradually formed. Jiang Shangyu knew that his father was looking forward to the marriage between him and Wang Yuetong. But now it seemed that such a marriage would not work at all. So in the past year or so, in the case of a gradual rift with the prince group, the Jiang family was in a very difficult situation and under great pressure. It was no secret that the Jiang family could not unite with the Wang family of Beihai by marriage. So the Special Warfare Group, which had been very close to the Jiang family, began to quietly offer an olive branch. But Jiang Shan didn't respond. As the final maneuver of the 2 academies approached, Jiang Shangyu's 3000 world accepted Gu Han's Han, which could be said to be the most obvious signal given by the Jiang family in the past year or so. This signal was sensitive enough to at least cause uneasiness in the prince group. But now everything was not certain. Jiang Shangyu came back to see Jiang Shan's specific plan. Gu Han's Han entered the 3000 world. This seemed to be a transaction and alliance between the younger generation. But in fact, within the Special Warfare Group and the Prince Group, this was the clearest signal. Under this signal there were 2 endings. The first was that Jiang Shangyu would withdraw from the 3000 world after the final maneuver when Gu Han's Han occupied the leading position. The second was that Jiang Shangyu would stay and serve as the number 2 figure in the 3000 world. The first ending proved that although there was a rift between Jiang Shan and the Prince Group, he was still a member of the Prince Group, at least without obvious disloyalty. The second was equivalent to directly showing that one of the Jiang family's feet had stepped into the position of the Special Warfare Group. The position of the Jiang family would become very subtle. The impact of a member of the decision-making committee changing his position was too great. But before Jiang Shan officially made a final decision, the Jiang family still had the value of winning him over, but it would also arouse the hostility within the Prince Group. This was a subtle and dangerous opportunity. Before the final maneuver began, Jiang Shangyu must listen to his father's decision. If you have no decision, I can withdraw from the 3000 world after the maneuver. Jiang Shangyu suddenly said. Zhou Xian's fingers, which were tapping on the table, paused. He raised his eyelids and looked at him, saying, Are you willing? Jiang Shangyu smiled. It's nothing. Gu Hanshan can't take away what belongs to me. Jiang Shan took a deep look at his son and said calmly, What's your plan? I don't have a specific plan yet. I just have a goal. Jiang Shangyu shook his head and whispered, Li Tianlan. Jiang Shan's eyes suddenly froze. Li Tianlan. Do you want to cooperate with him? I have to get in touch with him first. Jiang Shangyu smiled brightly when he thought of the young man who almost killed him in Heaven Capital 3 years ago. What if you don't have to withdraw from the 3000 world? Jiang Shan asked. Then it's even more necessary to get in touch with Li Tianlan. Jiang Shangyu lowered his eyelids and said calmly, I can give the leadership of the 3000 world to Gu Hanshan. But why can't he ask himself why? Why does he take it for granted? Be careful. Jiang Shan frowned. Father, don't worry. Jiang Shangyu said softly, I won't do anything before I'm sure. Jiang Shan said, Then don't quit for the time being. How long will it take for you to enter the thunder-shocking realm? Jiang Shangyu had the exquisite bone and the heavenly king heart. 3 years ago he was at the peak of the fire-flaming realm. 3 years later he still hadn't entered the thunder-shocking realm. Anytime. Jiang Shangyu laughed. Dad, I'm going to celebrate for myself. Lend me second uncle's cruise ship. You want to? Jiang Shan pondered. I want to hold a banquet in Huating. Jiang Shangyu said with a smile, The invitations have been sent out. Wang Xingxiao, Gu Hanshan, Song Ci, Li Tianlan, and Dongqing Rushi will all receive the invitations. In addition, I also invited Wang Yuetong. Li Tianlan will go, so will Wang Yuetong. Well, maybe there will be a good show. Wang Yuetong. Jiang Shan shook his head and sighed. It's a pity. If she could marry you. Jiang Shangyu was a little surprised. Dad, why do you attach so much importance to the Wang family of Beihai? Even if we don't stay in the prince group, we won't be worse than the Wang family of Beihai in the special warfare group, right? What do you know? Jiang Shan shook his head in self-mockery. The Wang family of Beihai has a special position in Zhongzhou state. They are powerful, but their focus is destined to be on Beihai province. If we cooperate with the Wang family of Beihai, Beijiang may become the sphere of influence of the Southeast group. But here the Jiang family is the master. As long as we don't have other ideas, Wang Tianzong won't interfere in the affairs of Beijiang. Kunlun City is different. Even if we join the special warfare group, Gu Xingyun will quietly support a force that can compete with the Jiang family. Kunlun City has a long history, but it has only been at the peak for a short time. It's just a nouveau riche. How can it compare with the Wang family of Beihai? You can look down on any force, but you can't look down on the Wang family of Beihai. Jiang Shan said with a dignified look. Jiang Shangyu answered casually and said with a smile, Of course. How can I look down on the Wang family of Beihai now? Jiang Shan frowned and sighed softly. We are in a difficult situation now. But if we have other choices, we'd better stay away from Li Tianlan as much as possible. That kind of possible cooperation. He suddenly paused. Do you think highly of him? He is a person with infinite possibilities. Jiang Shangyu said seriously, I've contacted him. He is the kind of person who would never be so ostentatious if he is not sure. I saw him severely injure Gu Yunxiao in the video, and I also saw the video of him fighting with Song Ci. It made me feel very wrong. Li Tianlan is very abnormal, but I can't tell what's wrong. Dad, I have an intuition that the current Wang Xingxiao should not be a match for Li Tianlan. Even among the younger generation, Li Tianlan has no opponent. So what? Jiang Shan said indifferently, after all, he is just a young generation. Does Li Tianlan have time to grow up? When it comes to the older generation, there is nothing to worry about. Jiang Shangyu said disapprovingly, His Highness Li Honghe is still alive. He forcibly restored to the peak state at the border. Now he should be getting stronger and stronger. Senior Li was the third on the divine list. Even if he is still not a match for Wang Tianzong, he is not weak. As long as he is alive, the Wang family of Beihai will not dare to do anything rashly. Indeed. Jiang Shan's face was a little gloomy. The Wang family of Beihai does not dare to do anything rashly. But it's not that they will not do anything. Zhang Shangyu was silent for a while. Thinking of the Wang family of Beihai's increasingly magnificent style of doing things in recent years, he still shook his head. They really do something. I don't think they can withstand Senior Li's dying counterattack. That will cause them heavy losses. Bullshit. Zhang Xian's slightly fat face shook. He glared at his son fiercely and took a deep breath. After a long time he suddenly said, "Our Jiang family has been developing well these years. Many people say that if the Jiang family can have an invincible realm expert, then now we will definitely not be weaker than the real top rich and powerful families like the Dongqing clan. Have you heard this saying?" Zhang Shangyu raised his eyebrows and nodded subconsciously. Zhang Shan smiled with some pain and self-mockery. "Actually, we used to have an invincible realm expert." Swish. Zhang Shangyu almost jumped up. The Jiang family had an invincible realm expert? Even in the past, Zhang Shangyu had never heard of it. How is it possible? He asked after taking a deep breath. Nothing is impossible. It's just that few people know. Maybe only I know. Zhang Shan's smile was extremely ugly. The invincible realm expert of our Jiang family can almost be regarded as the shortest-lived invincible realm expert in the dark world. This is not glory, it is a shame. Zhang Shangyu breathed quickly and stared at his father. "It's your little grandpa." Zhang Shan sighed softly. "We have been very close to the Special Warfare Group. More than 20 years ago, after Li Guangtu's treason, Kunlun City had just taken over. During that period, the old patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai had just died. You should know that Wang Tianzong broke through to the invincible realm relatively late, so during that time, there was no invincible realm expert in the Wang family of Beihai. Gu Xingyun was very ambitious. He just stepped on the Li family and wanted to take advantage of the time when the Wang family of Beihai was empty to swallow the Wang family of Beihai. During that time, Wang Tianzong did not enter the invincible realm. As long as he died, the Wang family of Beihai would be in a different situation. But at that time, Kunlun City was closely watched by all parties. It was not convenient for them to take action, so they found your little grandpa, my uncle. At that time, my uncle seemed to be a top expert of the half-step invincible realm, but only I knew that he had just broken through to the invincible realm. Because of this, we were moved by the benefits offered by Kunlun City. My uncle, who was in the invincible realm, accepted the deal and went to the Wang family of Beihai to assassinate Wang Tianzong." Zhang Shangyu's mouth twitched and he said subconsciously, "What happened later?" "Later?" Zhang Shan's mouth twitched and he said dryly, "Later he naturally failed and died." "How did he die?" Zhang Shangyu asked. Zhang Shan was silent for a long time before he took a deep breath. "I don't know." Zhang Shan said, "Although my uncle finally escaped back, he died in front of me before he had time to say a few words to me. It was not an invincible realm expert who gave him a fatal injury, but a kind of horror similar to a nightmare appeared on Zhang Shan's face. That was undisguised fear and dread, which came from instinct and from the soul. But 12 elites, 6 in the thunder-shocking realm and 6 in the fire-flaming realm. How is it possible?" Zhang Shangyu couldn't help but cry out. He couldn't imagine how this ridiculous lineup killed an invincible realm expert. Even if he was an expert who had just entered the invincible realm. That's the truth. After the extreme fear, Zhang Shan's expression was only numb. "Who the hell are those people?" Zhang Shangyu asked subconsciously. "I secretly checked, but there was no result. Those people seem to not exist. The only clue I have is a name left by your grandfather when he died." Chapter 307. Nanqing Temple was built in the deepest part of Nanqing Street, and the whole street got its name from Nanqing Temple. In the hundreds of years since the founding of Zhongzhou State, Yuzhou had become more and more prosperous. Today, Nanqing Temple had become one of the few buildings of the previous dynasty in Yuzhou City. Nanqing Street was narrow and deep. 2 rows of straight poplars were planted on both sides of the street. The dense canopies of the thick poplars almost covered the sky. Standing in the middle of the street and looking up at the sky, there was only a line left. This was known as one of the quietest streets in Yuzhou. There were no huge residential areas and dense small shops on both sides of the street, only 2 neat rows of dark cyan small buildings. The poplars were straight. The buildings were neat. Like an army. The wind blew in Yuzhou at dusk. There was no dusk on the horizon and the whole sky was gloomy. The wind before the rain poured into Nanqing Street and the rows of poplars rustled. It seemed that there was only the sound of the wind in the world. Nanqing Temple sat quietly at the end of the street, quiet and solemn in the wind. Nanqing Temple was not a temple. The star flag of Zhou State fluttered in front of the gate, and the national emblem of Zhou State with shining stars hung at the gate of the temple, looking extremely dignified. This was the office of the Second Department of the General Staff. The Second Department was the most mysterious and free department of the General Staff. Its staff was complicated, and the number of people outside the establishment was countless times more than that inside the establishment. The main task of the Second Department was to set up intelligence networks, collect intelligence, organize and analyze it, and take necessary actions according to national interests when necessary. So the Second Department of the General Staff had a name that was recognized by everyone. The Military Intelligence Department of Zhou State. The gloomy day turned into night in the wind. In the beautiful Nanqing Temple, a young short-haired woman opened the door of a side hall, turned off the lights inside, and walked directly to the gate of Nanqing Temple. The woman was tall and slender. She was indescribably seductive. She was dressed very simply. She wore ordinary canvas shoes and a pair of light blue jeans that wrapped around her slender legs and round buttocks. She wore an ordinary white short-sleeved shirt. She did not have any makeup on. She looked simple and natural. The former enchantment seemed to be fading away from her. Pureness settled into maturity. Her long silky hair turned into a short, sharp haircut. Steadiness replaced liveliness. Her figure was lonely and even weak, but with an indescribable stubbornness. It was an indescribable beauty. Nanqing Temple was quiet and gloomy at night. The woman was carrying a simple handbag. Walking quietly in the flourishing Nanqing Temple, it was as if he had lit up the entire night sky. He had been in Yuzhou for more than a year. Whether it was day or night, she was always the most beautiful scenery in Nanqing Temple and the most beautiful color on Nanqing Street. Yuetong working overtime again? A gentle voice sounded. Under the night sky, Nanqing Temple was illuminated by a faint light. A figure with a blurry face was standing there. Wang Yuetong couldn't see his face clearly, but from his military uniform, especially the marshal's epaulette, she could clearly judge his identity. General Yi. Wang Yuetong stood at attention and saluted. She said in a flat tone, "Why are you here?" Standing in front of her was the god of army of Zhou State, Yi Dongxing. Yi Dongxing's personal force was not extremely powerful, and his realm of the thunder-shocking realm was just something he could show off. He was known as the god of army of Zhou State, and the proudest thing about him was his brain. Over the years, Yi Dongxing was the best candidate to be the commander in several covert foreign disputes and numerous large-scale military exercises in Zhou State. And the wars he commanded were almost never defeated. Although Zhou State suffered heavy losses in the final battle of Heaven Capital, it was not Yi Dongxing's fault. Zhou State valued the cooperation with the Samsara Palace too much. As a result, when the Samsara Palace made a move, all of Yi Dongxing's plans suddenly became useless. And this matter more or less had an impact on his promotion. If not, when Qi Baitsong, the standing minister of the army headquarters of Zhou State, retired 2 years ago, Yi Dongxing would become the strongest opponent of Dongqing Wudi. Once Yi Dongxing won, the overall power of the Wang family of Beihai and the southeast faction would expand rapidly, and some more and more obvious hidden dangers would be suppressed by Yi Dongxing. To say the least, even if Yi Dongxing failed in the end, the Wang family of Beihai could get more chips, and it would be easier to trade with the Dongqing clan for the Border Control Corps. Unfortunately, all of this came to nothing because of the betrayal of the Samsara Palace in the final battle of Heaven Capital, which directly led to Yi Dongxing's serious lack of competitiveness when competing with Dongqing Wudi. In fact, the Wang family of Beihai and the Southeast Group were really having a bad time in recent years. The hidden dangers inside the Wang family of Beihai were getting more and more serious, and the internal conflicts had been escalating in the past 2 years. Now it had reached the point where all discerning people could detect it. In the past 3 years, the Wang family of Beihai had at least 2 opportunities to eliminate this hidden danger. The first was that Yi Dongxing became the new giant of the empire. If he defeated Dongqing Wudi and took over, all the hidden dangers would be suppressed. Unfortunately, it was Dongqing Wudi, the commander of the Border Control Corps, who came up in the end. Yi Dongxing was still suppressed as the deputy minister of the army headquarters and the minister of the general staff. The second opportunity was for Wang Xingxiao to inherit the dragon vein. If Wang Xingxiao merged the dragon vein after breaking through the peak of the thunder-shocking realm, he could enter the invincible realm in just 1 or 2 years with the help of the immortality potion. This could also eliminate the hidden dangers inside the Wang family of Beihai. But when the Wang family of Beihai was still preparing for these, he had already perfected his martial arts with the help of the dragon vein. So the hidden dangers of the Wang family of Beihai still existed. The nerves of every big shot of the Southeast group were getting tighter and tighter. In the dim light, Wang Yuetong took 2 steps forward. She could clearly see the solemnity in Yi Dongxing's eyes. Wang Yuetong hesitated a little, but in the end she didn't ask anything. Yi Dongxing sighed tiredly, looked at Wang Yuetong and said with a chuckle, "I'm here for a meeting and to see you. Yuetong, you haven't called me Uncle Yi for a long time. I work in the general staff and now I'm a soldier under your command. It's not appropriate to call me Uncle Yi," Wang Yuetong said lightly. Yi Dongxing looked at Wang Yuetong as if he were looking at a child in a fit of pique. He knew that Wang Yuetong held a grudge against him. It was Wang Tianzong's arrangement that she came to work in the general staff. The general staff had always been the traditional sphere of influence of the Southeast group. Yi Dongxing, as the deputy minister of the army headquarters, was in charge of the general staff and he managed the place well. Wang Yuetong worked in the general staff, which meant that she had always been under his eyes. It was not surveillance, but Yi Dongxing paid a lot of attention to Wang Yuetong's movements. Wang Yuetong naturally didn't like this feeling. "What's wrong with it?" Yi Dongxing sighed. "I was your grandfather's secretary for nearly 10 years. For a few years your father put you in foster care at our home. I watched you grow up." Wang Yuetong looked calm and did not say a word. She was like a withered but stubborn flower that refused to wither. "Yuetong, now your father and I are under a lot of pressure. You can't be willful at this time," Yi Dongxing said helplessly. "I'm not willful, but I don't think marrying Jiang Shangyu will help you," Wang Yuetong said lightly. Yi Dongxing took a deep breath. "You don't have to marry Jiang Shangyu. On this matter your father didn't give Jiang Shan a clear answer. He just wants you to come to Yuzhou and get in touch with other young people. You don't like Jiang Shangyu, but what about others? Over the past year, there have been more than double digits of people pursuing you, many of whom have excellent family backgrounds and moral characters. Don't you like any of them?" "I don't like them," Wang Yuetong said without hesitation. "I already have someone I like. How can I like others?" "You're acting in a fit of pique," Yi Dongxing snorted. He and Wang Tianzong were very good friends, so he treated Wang Yuetong like his own daughter. "Think about it carefully. Do you really like Li Tianlan? How long have you been in contact with him? I admit that he is excellent and he does have the possibility to impress you, but that's not all. You and he may have admired each other. You think it's love, but it's not at all. You're just acting in a fit of pique. If your father didn't bring you back from Li Tianlan, you wouldn't have contacted him for 3 years. Maybe your feelings for him would have faded. He did a stupid thing. It's because he brought you back to Beihai that you feel unreconciled. Li Tianlan, who used to be unimportant, has become very important. Girl, isn't that willful?" But Wang Yuetong's voice was still faint, without any ups and downs, without the youthful vigor that belonged to young people. "Uncle Yi, you don't understand," she said softly. "I can be sure of my feelings, but I don't want to explain it. We don't spend much time together, but I feel at ease and calm when I stay with him. Feelings can't be measured by the length of time." Yi Dongxing remained silent. After a long time he took a deep breath and said with a bitter smile, "Well, even if you're sure of your feelings, can you be sure of Li Tianlan's feelings? You like him, but does he like you? Qin Weibai is his woman and Dongqing Rushi is his fiancé. To be frank, Dongqing Rushi is no worse than you and Qin Weibai is even more, ahem. Girl, have you ever thought about this? Even if you're by his side, what position do you have?" Wang Yuetong froze on the spot. The wind in the night sky gradually dissipated. The clouds pressed down. It began to rain in Yuzhou drop by drop. Wang Yuetong stood quietly in the rain, and her eyes were as blank as the rain under the night sky. "I don't know," she said softly, her voice simple and confused. She really didn't know. For 3 years she had never thought about this question. She just instinctively persisted and didn't want to give up. Yi Dongxing looked at Wang Yuetong with complicated eyes and said softly, "Since you don't know, why are you still persisting?" Wang Yuetong suddenly laughed. It seemed to be the first time for her to smile in a long time. In a trance, she seemed to have returned to her former state, pure, lively, and enchanting. She tidied the short hair on her forehead and said softly, "I just want my father to admit that only my persistence over the years is right. The man I like is the most right." She looked at Yi Dongxing and continued, "Uncle Yi, if the contradictions and hidden dangers of the Wang family of Beihai really break out completely, and my father and brother can't suppress it, only he has the ability to solve everything as long as he can grow up." "He does have the ability." Yi Dongxing's voice was cold and straightforward. "But does he have a position?" "I am his position." Wang Yuetong said calmly, "My man, whether he is an ambitious or a heavenly son, will be affectionate." "I believe that." "How could he become a heavenly son without affection?" Wang Tianzong himself didn't seem to notice this. But Wang Yuetong always believed it. She believed that she was right. "I want to ask for leave." Wang Yuetong looked at Yi Dongxing and said softly. This was not the first time she had asked for leave. Since the first day Li Tianlan returned to Huating, she had written a leave request report to her leader. However, her report was conveyed to the leader level by level and finally reached Yi Dongxing's desk. Yi Dongxing didn't approve it. Wang Yuetong didn't move. Because she knew very well that if the leave was not approved, she couldn't leave Yuzhou. Yi Dongxing was silent for a long time. Just when Wang Yuetong's heart became cold again, he finally nodded. "Yes," Yi Dongxing said. Wang Yuetong froze in place for a while, looking at Yi Dongxing in a daze and didn't speak. "You can go to Huading and see Li Tianlan." Yi Dongxing lowered his eyelids, hiding all his eyes. Wang Yuetong suddenly panicked. 3 years. So many struggles, so many thoughts, so many tortures. Wang Yuetong never doubted her feelings, nor did she escape her lovesickness. Now Li Tianlan was in Huating. He was in Yuzhou. He had a holiday. As long as she wanted, she could see the man she yearned for day and night in a few hours. But at this moment Wang Yuetong's heart suddenly panicked. The positions of the Wang family of Beihai and the Li family suddenly became extremely sharp and clear. The scenes when they parted also began to reappear in her mind. Wang Yuetong was a little scared. She wanted to see Li Tianlan, but she didn't dare. She wanted to go to Huating, but she needed a reason. Yi Dongxing took out an invitation and handed it to Wang Yuetong. "This is an invitation for you, an invitation from Jiang Shangyu. Tomorrow night he will hold a banquet on the Huangpu River. It's a summit meeting of the young generation. Li Tianlan will go." Wang Yuetong's breathing suddenly quickened. He suddenly felt grateful to Jiang Shangyu. Because this invitation card was the reason she needed the most. She took the invitation with trembling hands, suddenly bowed deeply to Yi Dongxing and ran directly to the door. She staggered, not wanting to wait any longer. "Your father asked me to tell you something." Yi Dongxing's voice sounded behind her, clear and steady. "Don't think too lowly of yourself. At least in his heart, you are nobler than anyone else." Wang Yuetong's figure was slightly stiff. She thought of the increasingly poor father-daughter relationship with her father in the past few years. Wang Yuetong's heart ached and she directly rushed out of Nanqing Temple. Li Tianlan stayed in the Sky Academy for nearly a week. He didn't return to the director's compound in Wudong New area until Li Beiyan, Su Chu and Ning Qianqing's injuries stabilized. Dongqing Rushi had been living here. Zhou Yuanshan had returned to Zhongyuan. Dongqing Qiuqi was still working and hadn't gotten off work. So when Li Tianlan came back, only Dongqing Rushi and the Golden Retriever were sitting in the living room. Dongqing Rushi was reading a book. The Golden Retriever was quietly lying at her feet, staring at the cartoon on TV. No one knew what it was observing. Seeing Li Tianlan come back, the Golden Retriever directly rushed over and hung on Li Tianlan. Dongqing Rushi also seemed a little happy. "You're back." Li Tianlan nodded, caressed the Golden Retriever's head and put it on the ground. He said, "The first group of elites of the Deep Sea Academy has already arrived at the Sky Academy." "I heard about it." Dongqing Rushi poured a glass of water for Li Tianlan. Her eyelashes fluttered gently, and her bright eyes sparkled with a little smile. She was a little shy, a little proud and a little clear and soft. "You seriously injured Gu Yunxia and defeated Song Xi. You're very powerful." Dongqing Rushi's voice was clear and she said honestly, I can't defeat Xianxia. Xianxia is indeed very powerful. Li Tianlan nodded. Xianxia was actually not difficult to deal with in a normal state. But once she went all out with the martial arts elites of the Wang family of Beihai, the combat capability that erupted in an instant was almost unrivaled in the thunder-shocking realm. Although Li Tianlan defeated her, he would not belittle her. Dongqing Rushi sat next to Li Tianlan and naturally grabbed one of his hands and put it on her leg. Dongqing Rushi changed into a tight white jumpsuit today. Li Tianlan's palm could clearly feel the warmth and elasticity of her thigh through a thin layer of cloth. His heart jumped uncontrollably, and then he said as if nothing had happened, when are we going to meet them? We can go to the maneuver one day in advance. I'll be with you. Dongqing Rushi said honestly. Li Tianlan thought for a moment. Then shall we go to East Emperor Palace? Dongqing Rushi's eyes lit up. Before she could speak, the phone suddenly rang. Dongqing Rushi picked up the phone, looked at it and said softly, it's father. You answer it? You answer it. Li Tianlan shook his head. The enthusiasm of the Dongqing clan always made him feel that he could not bear it. But after that night, Li Tianlan felt that there was less and less room for him to dodge. He subconsciously looked at Dongqing Rushi's small mouth. Red, full, gentle, it was a little jerky but very flexible. Li Tianlan's body felt hot. He picked up the water glass in front of him and took a big sip. Dongqing Rushi felt Li Tianlan's gaze. She blushed, picked up the phone and called Dad. Rushi, are you with Tianlan? Dongqing Wudi's voice was very soft. Dongqing Rushi said obediently, he's watching cartoons next to me. Li Tianlan looked at the two funny bears on TV with a helpless face. Dongqing Wudi smiled with some relief. Well, it's good to be together. You should get to know each other more. Dongqing Rushi said, Dad, what happened? Dongqing Wudi was silent for a while and then said slowly, nothing, but in the final maneuver a month later, you should join East Emperor Palace. Tianlan has few helpers now. Dongqing Rushi nodded without hesitation. I'll discuss it with him. Dongqing Wudi smiled and hung up the phone. What's wrong? Li Tianlan asked subconsciously, but when he turned his head, his eyes fell on Dongqing Rushi's small mouth instinctively. Dongqing Rushi couldn't bear it. When she thought of what happened that night, she suddenly became a little ashamed and angry. What are you looking at? Li Tianlan also felt that he was very wretched. He coughed awkwardly and said, nothing. What did the marshal say? Dongqing Rushi hesitated and finally shook her head. Nothing, just chatting. She finally decided to do it herself. Li Tianlan felt embarrassed and didn't ask more. Dongqing Rushi suddenly leaned over and kissed him on the face, then sat next to him. Li Tianlan's body trembled and he subconsciously glanced at her. Your heart is beating fast and your eyes are strange. Dongqing Rushi bit her lip. It's daytime now, night. Li Tianlan's mind went blank and the heat in his body almost made him lose his mind. He gasped a few times, suddenly reached out, lifted Dongqing Rushi's chin, and looked at her small mouth and was about to kiss it. A burst of cold killing intent burst out from Dongqing Rushi in an instant. Li Tianlan froze and subconsciously loosened his palm. The clarity in Dongqing Rushi's eyes gradually disappeared, and she became confused, but the killing intent was getting stronger and stronger. There was a flash of thought in her eyes. Li Tianlan's face changed and he narrowed his eyes. Now the one who woke up in Dongqing Rushi's body was undoubtedly Dongqing Yuxian. Dongqing Yuxian, whose eyes were a little confused, suddenly changed her face, and her beautiful face suddenly became red. She seemed to think of something and her eyes suddenly became cold. That night, which made Dongqing Rushi extremely ashamed and angry, was completely an unbearable humiliation for her. What made her especially unbearable was the end of that night. Whether it was intentional or not, Li Tianlan actually got it on her face. Dongqing Yuxian's eyes suddenly became incomparably cold. She stared at Li Tianlan, and her delicate body couldn't stop trembling. How dare you blaspheme me? She looked at Li Tianlan with a face full of disbelief. Blaspheme. Just one word was enough to show how arrogant Dongqing Yuxian was. I'm just spoiling my fiancé. Chapter 308. At the beginning of July. It was raining heavily in Huating. The messy rain fell from early morning to evening and it didn't stop at all. Instead, it got heavier and heavier. The banquet on the Huangpu River, known as the Summit of the Young Generation, was not cancelled. Jiang Shangyu, who had already arrived in Huating, reiterated the starting time of the banquet. Li Tianlan and Dongqing Yueshan set off an hour earlier and were close to their destination when the banquet was about to begin. The gloomy sky gradually became dark in the pouring rain. The raindrops hit the car window and the wipers danced lightly on the windshield, bringing with them patches of water. Dongqing Yueshan drove the car expressionlessly, looking straight ahead. When the two personalities alternated on her, if she didn't disguise herself, she would have two completely different temperaments. Dongqing Rushi was beautiful and innocent, well-behaved and elegant, silly and adorable, like a clear spring without impurities. It was crystal clear. Dongqing Yueshan never hid her indifference. It was a kind of indifference that rejected the whole world, with too many complicated melancholy and quietness. The same body. But the two personalities represented two completely different wills. I remember when you were in Heaven Capital, you said that even when Rushi appeared, you could feel everything that happened outside. Li Tianlan sat in the passenger seat and suddenly said. After Dongqing Yueshan appeared in place of Dongqing Rushi, the two didn't fight in the council yard. On the contrary, Dongqing Yueshan seemed to swallow everything. Dongqing Qiuqi didn't go back last night. When the two were alone, they even slept in different rooms last night, not to mention any erotic contact. Li Tianlan could feel that Dongqing Yueshan seemed to be trying hard to suppress her emotions, but intentionally or unintentionally, she still clearly revealed her disgust for him. But she still didn't make a move. Li Tianlan knew it was not a good thing. When Dongqing Yueshan's attitude was so clear, she didn't make a move, which could only mean that she was still waiting for an opportunity. Just like the lovesickness under the thunder in Heaven Capital. I'm meditating. Otherwise, how can our strength improve so fast? If not, how can you desecrate my body, you bastard? You actually got it on my face, you. Dongqing Yueshan's face turned red, and her black and white eyes stared at Li Tianlan fiercely. You hate me. Li Tianlan said calmly. The anger on Dongqing Yueshan's beautiful face suddenly froze. Then she turned her head fiercely, gritted her teeth and said, No, but I don't like you either. I can understand. Li Tianlan nodded. It was easy to accept that there was a sub-personality behind the main personality that was obedient to him. But Rushi is my fiancé. I don't think that level of contact is too much. She is your fiancé and so am I. Dongqing Yueshan sneered and said, But are you going to fulfill the engagement? If you're willing to marry me, I'll let you do whatever you want to me. I can even accept more extreme things, but are you willing? Li Tianlan suddenly fell silent. Dongqing Yueshan sneered. Her crisp voice became a bit sharp, but it was still pleasant. You just want to play with us. You're tired of playing with Dongqing Rushi's personality, so you come to play with me. After you're tired of me, you just leave? Why should I accept you? Rushi doesn't care if you have other women, but I do. Do you want to have sex with me? Sure, as long as you draw a line with that woman in samsara, you can have me at any time. Otherwise, don't even think about touching me. Li Tianlan couldn't give an answer. No answer. In Dongqing Yueshan's heart, it was already an answer. She sneered and also fell silent. Li Tianlan took out a cigarette. When he was fumbling for a lighter, Dongqing Yueshan had already thrown a silver metal lighter to him. Li Tianlan froze for a moment and said thank you. Rushi went out to buy it a few days ago. No need to thank me. Dongqing Yueshan said coldly. Li Tianlan smoked silently and didn't speak. The atmosphere in the car was getting more and more depressing. After a while, Dongqing Yueshan finally couldn't help sighing and said, Li Tianlan, what do you dislike about us? Do you want all of us in the Dongqing clan to kneel in front of you before you'll marry us? No. Li Tianlan's heart twitched fiercely. He took a deep drag on the cigarette and said softly, The Dongqing clan is very good. I mean it. If the Li family was still at its peak, it would be okay for you to do this. But now that the Li family is in such a situation, you are still willing to treat me like this. I believe that no one can do this except the Dongqing clan. I am very grateful and touched. Then you, Dongqing Yueshan, who had calmed down a little, was a little confused. You should have a good ending. Li Tianlan said slowly, instead of following me to the unknown. If I marry you, I will tie the Dongqing clan to my side. You know the opponent I will face. If I win, the Dongqing clan will not benefit, at least not much. But if I lose, the entire Dongqing clan may be dragged into the abyss by me. Marriage may not have such a strong constraint, but once I accept the marriage I will get the full support of the Dongqing clan. Li Tianlan's smile was a little bitter. At this moment, all the members of the Dongqing clan became clear in his mind. The kind and hearty Dongqing Hongguang. The silent but powerful Dongqing Wudi. The affectionate and gentle Bai Qingqian. The gentle and affable Dongqing Qiuqi. The lovely and beautiful Dongqing Rushi. They should have a good ending. To be honest, I'm afraid that I can't afford such support. This kind of affection is too heavy, so heavy that I feel like a sinner. Li Tianlan took a deep drag on the cigarette and murmured again, "You should have a good ending." Dongqing Yueshan's fingers trembled quietly, and she suddenly grasped the steering wheel. Her face was a little pale, and her eyes looking at Li Tianlan were all complicated. "Is that why you won't marry us?" Dongqing Yueshan said softly. "There's another reason." Li Tianlan threw away the cigarette butt and looked at Dongqing Yueshan. His eyes were deep and distant. "In Heaven Capital it was you most of the time, wasn't it?" He looked at Dongqing Yueshan's evasive eyes and said blandly, "That night, why did you want to kill me?" "I dare not accept the affection of the Dongqing clan. I can't marry you. I also can't marry a woman who wants to kill me at any time. I dare not marry you." Li Tianlan looked at Dongqing Yueshan, and his expression was very sincere. "I'm very curious. Is it because of our engagement that you want to kill me?" "I didn't want to kill you. Are you still angry?" Dongqing Yueshan bit her lip and looked at Li Tianlan carefully. Her eyes were as clear as water. Li Tianlan's heart instantly sank. "Kiss me," Li Tianlan suddenly said. Her face was red and her eyes were bright and she was a little happy. She slowed down the car, hesitated and leaned over to kiss Li Tianlan gently on the face. "Are you done?" She looked at Li Tianlan and asked. "Yes." Li Tianlan took a deep look at her and his smile was slightly bitter. He could be sure that at this moment the person sitting next to him was Dongqing Rushi. Dongqing Yueshan's personality finally chose to escape. It was a stormy day. Jiang Shangyu calmly showed his privilege. The number 1 pier of Binshan Road was completely blocked, leaving only a special passage for people to enter. A 5-story white luxury cruise ship was quietly parked, and the cruise ship was brightly lit. When Li Tianlan and Dongqing Rushi entered the pier, there were still 10 minutes before the banquet officially began. There were already many figures moving back and forth on the top deck. The lights shone on the crowd and it became extremely clear in Li Tianlan's sight. The heavy rain fell wildly from the sky. The space on the 5th floor was not blocked at all, but at this time, everywhere was dry without a trace of moisture. This was the summit meeting of the young generation. Tonight, those who were perfunctory were at least young experts who had entered the fire-flaming realm. The heavy rain had completely evaporated before it fell. In the storm, dozens of fire-flaming realm experts stood there, and the space within 100 meters around the entire cruise ship was dry, without a single drop of rain, let alone on the deck of the 5th floor. Li Tianlan didn't see Jiang Shangyu. He didn't see Gu Hanshan. But he saw Wang Xingxiao. At this time Wang Xingxiao was standing in front of the railing with Song Ci, chatting with several young experts around him. Song Ci, who was gorgeous and almost flamboyant, still looked pale but she was extremely energetic. Li Tianlan's eyes suddenly froze. In an instant Wang Xingxiao's eyes swept over. Li Tianlan, Wang Xingxiao. Song Ci, Dongqing Rushi. 4 pairs of eyes directly collided in the air. There seemed to be a strange and suffocating atmosphere spreading throughout the cruise ship. Li Tianlan looked at Wang Xingxiao calmly. Wang Xingxiao's cold eyes with killing intent gradually faded. Finally he smiled brightly and waved at Li Tianlan. "Let's go." Li Tianlan boarded the cruise ship. Dongqing Rushi obediently took Li Tianlan's arm. Today she wore a long white dress, elegant, quiet and beautiful like a fairy. The two walked side by side onto the cruise ship and went straight to the top floor. More and more people knew that Li Tianlan had boarded the cruise ship. Under everyone's different gazes, Li Tianlan and Dongqing Rushi went straight to the 5th floor. The two figures appeared at the top of the stairs. Everyone had different looks in their eyes. On the other side, Jiang Shangyu and Gu Hanshan had already walked over. Wang Xingxiao and Song Ci directly approached Li Tianlan. Most of the young experts with lower levels of martial arts were looking at Dongqing Rushi's hand holding Li Tianlan's arm. Because this hand represented the attitude of the Dongqing clan. But the real top experts were looking at Li Tianlan. Wang Xingxiao's eyebrows twitched a few times. Gu Hanshan, who came over, raised his eyebrows slightly. Jiang Shangyu's eyes became deeper and deeper. The sword strike that Li Tianlan hit Gu Yunxia hard. The battle between him and Song Ci had already become a video and spread all over Zhongzhou state. Several top young experts vaguely felt that there was something wrong with Li Tianlan in the battle state. But Li Tianlan, who appeared in front of them now, was normal and there was nothing wrong with him. No one knew what was going on, but at least no one would think that it was a problem with the video. Li Tianlan's eyes were looking at Song Ci at her pale face. You recover quickly. Li Tianlan smiled and said blandly. He could roughly know Song Ci's injury. Under normal circumstances, Song Ci didn't even have the ability to get out of bed, let alone appear here. With her injury, it was very likely that she wouldn't be able to recover her combat capability within a month. But now, although she was still injured, her injury was almost healed. This kind of recovery speed was not in line with common sense at all. I've always been in good health. Song Ci took a deep look at Li Tianlan and said blandly, I'll remember that sword strike. Next time I won't let you succeed so easily. Really? Li Tianlan said blandly, do you think you still have a chance? As I said, I've always been in good health. I'll see you in the maneuver a month later. Song Ci's tone was cold. Li Tianlan smiled and nodded, saying, your body is really good and your vitality is even stronger. Song Ci's face changed slightly and she snorted, in terms of physical strength, I'm at least stronger than you. Li Tianlan's smile froze. He narrowed his eyes and said nothing. Seeing his expression, Song Ci and Wang Xingxiao's eyes lit up almost at the same time. I haven't seen you for 3 years, Your Highness. Welcome to Qingshan, Your Highness. A clear laugh sounded behind Li Tianlan. Jiang Shangyu strode over. Li Tianlan turned to look at Jiang Shangyu. It was true that they hadn't seen each other for 3 years. The last time they met, Li Tianlan personally sent Jiang Shangyu out of Heaven Capital. He almost died in the dense forest of Heaven Capital. This could be said to be a life-and-death feud. But Jiang Shangyu seemed to have forgotten this. His eyes were calm and his smile was only sincere. And he still called him Your Highness. Li Tianlan reached out and shook hands with him, saying with a chuckle, You seem to have had a good time these 3 years? Not bad, comfortable. I'm too far behind you, so I don't want to compete with you. Jiang Shangyu said with a smile. Li Tianlan took a serious look at him, a little surprised and a little vigilant. 3 years ago, Jiang Shangyu was already at the peak of the fire-flaming realm, and even a half-step to the thunder-shocking realm. But today, 3 years later, Jiang Shangyu was still a half-step to the thunder-shocking realm. His martial arts realm seemed unchanged. But vaguely, Li Tianlan felt that Jiang Shangyu was stronger than Song Ci, who was at the peak of the thunder-shocking realm. You're modest. Li Tianlan said calmly. Gu Hanshan had come over. Li Tianlan turned around calmly. At the same time, the last guest of the party climbed the stairs of the 5th floor alone. Li Tianlan suddenly froze. The last guest, who seemed to be looking for something on the cruise ship, also froze in place. She was wearing a red off-the-shoulder dress, which made her skin look even fairer and more tender. She was wearing a pair of strappy high heels and her tall figure seemed to be prouder. Her neat and capable short hair. Her beautiful face with some persistence and stubbornness. Li Tianlan's eyes drifted in a trance. Wang Yuetong. He didn't expect to see Wang Yuetong tonight. And it was Wang Yuetong who was like a different person from 3 years ago. Wang Yuetong looked at Li Tianlan in a daze. The top floor of the cruise ship seemed to be quiet. Jiang Shangyu's expression didn't change, but a vague light flashed in his eyes. Under everyone's gaze, Wang Yuetong took a few steps forward on her own initiative. She walked up to Li Tianlan, and her watery eyes quickly glanced at Dongqing Rushi, who was holding Li Tianlan's arm. Then she took the initiative to speak softly. Senior brother Tianlan, are you okay? Li Tianlan opened his mouth. His voice was dry, but he was extremely calm. I'm fine. How about you? I'm not okay. Chapter 309. Wang Yuetong's voice was low. But the sentence, I'm not good, was said clearly and straightforwardly. Everyone could feel the emotions in these 3 words. Not only was there grievance, but there was also the loss after the deep love and persistence. She lowered her head, but out of the corner of her eyes she kept looking at Li Tianlan and Dongqing Rushi's intertwined arms. The light in Wang Yuetong's big eyes dimmed. Li Tianlan suddenly felt that his arm was a little hot. He subconsciously pulled his arm out of Dongqing Rushi's hand. This action was abrupt and stiff. Dongqing Rushi froze for a moment and looked at Li Tianlan with her clear eyes. Her confused expression made one's heart ache. It seemed that she couldn't react at all. She still held Li Tianlan's arm. But Li Tianlan had already pulled his arm out. Dongqing Rushi blinked. She seemed to want to say something, but in the end she just put down her hand silently. Wang Yuetong still kept her head down. Li Tianlan himself was also stunned. He looked at Wang Yuetong, who lowered her head, and then at Dongqing Rushi, who was a little confused. On their snow-white wrists, both of them wore the same exquisite lady's wristwatch. The only difference was the name engraved on the watch hand. At this moment, Li Tianlan suddenly hated himself very much. For the first time he realized how indecisive he was when it came to relationships. He saw clearly the future of himself and the Wang family of Beihai, but he couldn't give up Wang Yuetong. He didn't want to owe the Dongqing clan too much, but he was reluctant to leave Dongqing Rushi. He had Qin Weibai, at least he used to have her, but he had been running away from the Samsara Palace. At this moment what should have been two people's melancholy became three people's pain. Only then did Li Tianlan realize that he was such a jerk in love. His hand moved. "I'm not good," Wang Yuetong repeated. Her voice was a little higher. Although she still kept her head down, she seemed to be a little more energetic. 3 years had passed. Separation is greater than reunion. Wang Yuetong never regretted meeting Li Tianlan, nor did she regret getting to know him. He loved him. However, during the 3 years when he was missing, Wang Yuetong, who had been clenching her teeth and persisting alone, was really tired. She hoped that Li Tianlan could say something. Even if it was just a word, a hug, or even just a touch of her head, any small gesture would make her feel that her persistence was meaningful. More and more people were gathering around. Li Tianlan, Wang Xingxiao, Gu Hanshan, Jiang Shangyu, Song Ci, Dongqing Rushi, Wang Yuetong. This was the true summit meeting of the younger generation. At this moment, the few of them were standing together, which meant that it was likely to be a grudge that would last for an entire generation. The atmosphere gradually became subtle. The storm ravaged the entire city. The neon lights in the distance shone on the surface of the water. The surging river twisted and blurred. The whole city was like an illusion. Only the cruise ship under his feet was incomparably real. Neither wind nor rain could invade it. It was like the only pure land. Dongqing Rushi bit her red lips. Although she was naive, she was not stupid. Standing beside Li Tianlan, she took a step back. No matter whether she felt wronged or resentful, she didn't want to embarrass him on such an occasion. A big warm hand grasped her little hand. Li Tianlan breathed deeply. His expression gradually became cold and hard, becoming cold and cruel. He could feel the surging vitality in Wang Yuetong. It was hope and expectation, liveliness and longing. These emotions were too beautiful. Beautiful things would be broken. Just like what rose would eventually fall. Any beautiful future with too much fantasy and longing would eventually turn into despair. The Wang family of Beihai wanted to have a lasting legacy and be glorious for generations. Wang Yuetong wanted to stay with him forever. The corners of Li Tianlan's mouth trembled slightly, but he insisted on raising it. His movement was very light, but it seemed that he had used all his strength, so he looked extremely determined. Wang Yuetong's words still echoed in his ears. But he didn't want to respond. He held Dongqing Rushi's hand and looked at Wang Xingxiao. "See you in the maneuver," he said. At this moment, there was only silence left in Li Tianlan. The pupils of Wang Xingxiao and Song Ci completely contracted in an instant. At this moment, there was no emotion in Li Tianlan's eyes. Only life and death. Li Tianlan didn't look at Wang Yuetong. He took Dongqing Rushi and walked to another corner. "I miss you very much. I've always missed you." Wang Yuetong's head was getting lower and lower. She didn't look at Li Tianlan's back but said in a trembling voice. Li Tianlan didn't turn around. His footsteps paused slightly and then he continued to move forward. This time he would never look back. Wang Yuetong didn't speak. She stood where she was with her head down. The vitality that had appeared in her was completely gone, and she was completely withered. A crystal tear flowed down from the corner of Wang Yuetong's eye and fell on the deck. Drop after drop, like beads with a broken string. It turned out that the answer to the end was so cruel. It turned out that the fantasy future was so cruel. Wang Yuetong's eyes were blurred in tears. She still remembered that sunny morning 3 years ago when they first met in the entrance maneuver. She still remembered that stormy night 3 years ago when Li Tianlan passed his body temperature to her. But her memories, her fantasies, and her perseverance were all in this storm tonight as he turned around and left. Wang Yuetong stood quietly, covered her mouth with her hand and trembled all over. Crack. Xianxia stood beside Wang Xingxiao and directly crushed the wine glass in her hand. The sharp glass pierced through her hand, leaving wounds one after another. Beads of blood rolled down and merged with the red wine. Wang Xingxiao looked at Li Tianlan's back quietly. A sharpness flashed in his eyes. He took a step forward and was about to rush to Li Tianlan. Xianxia calmly pulled his body. She threw away the broken wine glass in her hand, the red wine and the blood on her hand. In a short time the wounds on her hand caused by the glass had begun to heal. Xianxia looked at Li Tianlan's back, and a touch of softness and appreciation quietly flashed through her silent eyes. "He's right," Xianxia whispered, "even though it's cruel." Wang Xingxiao took a deep breath. He barely suppressed the anger that had been out of control in his heart and walked stiffly to Wang Yuetong. Wang Yuetong didn't look up, just stood in silence. "Go." Wang Xingxiao said softly, "A man like that is not worth it." Wang Yuetong didn't speak. All that flashed through her mind were the pictures of her and Li Tianlan. There were few pictures, but after they were fragmented, they were so complicated that they occupied every corner of her heart. Huading in early summer was still hot and dry even in the storm. The perfunctory young experts used their martial arts strength to evaporate the rain falling from the sky. Although the fire was not obvious, the temperature was rising sharply as if they were in a furnace. Wang Yuetong felt very cold. This early summer was too cold. A piercing chill enveloped her body. He felt like she was in deep winter, like she was in the polar region. Like she was in an ice cave. Her body was stiff because of the cold, like a statue. The wind and rain outside the cruise ship kept howling. Wang Yuetong's heart kept sinking with those fragmented pictures. It was like falling into the abyss forever. Li Tianlan took Dongqing Rushi to the corner on the top floor. The cruise ship was very big. So the corner was cold and quiet. There was no rain here. The rain evaporated by the heat wave turned into steam and rushed out of the cruise ship, mixing with the rain outside. Colorful halos appeared in front of Li Tianlan one after another. The halos were dazzling. So the large halos began to disappear. The scorching heat in the corner slowly dissipated and retreated. There was still no rain in the corner. Li Tianlan let go of Dongqing Rushi's palm and looked at the prosperous Huating in the storm night. Dongqing Rushi stood beside him obediently, but a small hand was quietly hidden behind her. Li Tianlan noticed her movement. He suddenly came back to her senses. "Did I hurt you?" he said softly. "No." Dongqing Rushi shook her head subconsciously and said a little quickly, "It's okay." He was not good at lying. Her big eyes blinked, and the small hand hidden behind her was shaking unnaturally. "Are you unhappy?" Dongqing Rushi stared into Li Tianlan's eyes and asked, "Is it because of me? Or because of her?" "Neither." Li Tianlan shook his head. He didn't know why. Because of standpoint? Because of fate? Because of choice? Or because of the future? These questions were big and Li Tianlan couldn't give an answer. He was just unhappy. Dongqing Rushi walked over and gently pulled Li Tianlan's hand. She didn't know what to say, so she could only accompany him in silence. "I'm sorry," Li Tianlan said softly. "Did I make you unhappy too?" "No." Dongqing Rushi looked at Li Tianlan seriously. Her eyebrows and eyes were curved and she showed a faint smile. "I'm very happy when I'm with you." Li Tianlan looked at Dongqing Rushi. That elegant face was brimming with joy, pure and genuine. Li Tianlan suddenly took a step forward, held Dongqing Rushi in his arms, and kissed her red lips almost violently. His kiss was wild and rough. Dongqing Rushi opened her eyes wide in shock. The two stared at each other at the closest distance, and they could even see their own reflections in each other's eyes. It was so clear. An intoxicating blush quietly climbed onto Dongqing Rushi's face. She blinked her eyes and closed them gently. She also put her hands around Li Tianlan's neck, and responded to his roughness in a somewhat jerky but extremely gentle way. The banquet had begun in the center of the deck not far away. Jiang Shangyu personally opened the champagne. The air gradually filled with the aroma of barbecue. Wang Yuetong still stood where she was, lonely and desolate. A voice suddenly sounded behind Li Tianlan with a smile. Yuetong is distracted by you, and junior sister Rushi is also so docile by your side. All the good cabbages have been taken by you. There are luxury suites downstairs. Do you need to arrange them for you? Dongqing Rushi, who had been completely immersed in it, was shocked. She pushed Li Tianlan's chest with her small hand, and the two suddenly separated. Dongqing Rushi's little face was red. She used to be as beautiful as a fairy, but now she had a kind of soul-stirring beauty. She hid her face in Li Tianlan's arms and held his waist tightly as if she didn't want to look outside. Li Tianlan looked at Jiang Shangyu, who walked to his side. He didn't call him Your Highness this time, but the natural joking tone very casually narrowed the distance between them. Li Tianlan put his arms around Dongqing Rushi, looked at Jiang Shangyu, who almost died in his hands 3 years ago, and said indifferently, "Are you envious?" "Envious but not jealous," Jiang Shangyu said with a smile. "If it's not mine, I don't want it. If it's mine, no one can take it away." Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows, only feeling that there was a hidden meaning in his words. "What happened just now, although you seem a little ruthless, can still be explained." Jiang Shangyu handed Li Tianlan a cigarette and said meaningfully, "You see, the princess is still standing there and hasn't moved. If you are willing to go over, is it meaningful?" Li Tianlan said calmly, "If I explain it, it will only make her more painful in the future." "Of course it is meaningful," Jiang Shangyu said with a smile. "If you can continue to entangle with her, it will be good for us. Because the Wang family of Beihai will not compromise, and neither will you. This gives us a chance." Li Tianlan glanced at him. "Me and Hans Han," Jiang Shangyu said indifferently. Li Tianlan lit the cigarette that Jiang Shangyu handed over. "Seems that you have a good cooperation. You gave up the leadership of the 3000 world. Are you willing to submit to Gu Hans Han?" "Not bad." Jiang Shangyu's smile didn't change. He was very shrewd. No matter how he felt inside, he always seemed to have a sincere and unquestionable smile on his face. "Hans Han is much stronger than me. He's willing to help me. I can't say that I'm under him, right? Maybe if I follow him I can go higher. This is my chance and also the best choice." "Not necessarily." Li Tianlan shook his head. "The higher you climb, the harder you fall. When you really climb to a height close to the peak, Gu Hanshan personally pushes you down. Have you ever thought about that feeling?" "Never thought about it," Jiang Shangyu said with a calm smile. "I will be his most important helper. Who will be willing to cut off his own arm?" "What if there is a reason to do so?" Li Tianlan sneered. "For example, he knows that you have been hiding the Heavenly King heart. What do you think he will choose?" Jiang Shangyu suddenly shook, and the cigarette in his hand burned into ashes in an instant. He raised his head hard and looked at Li Tianlan in disbelief. Until this moment he really felt shock and fear. Heavenly King heart. This was his biggest secret. Only he and his father Jiang Shan knew it. How did Li Tianlan know about this? Jiang Shangyu opened his mouth, and a trace of cold, killing intent suddenly flashed in his eyes. Li Tianlan looked at him quietly. Even Dongqing Rushi raised her head from Li Tianlan's arms and looked at Jiang Shangyu in surprise. "Don't do it," Li Tianlan said slowly. "This is stupid and you are no match for me now." Jiang Shangyu looked at Dongqing Rushi and then at Li Tianlan. His eyes kept wandering and the killing intent was getting stronger and stronger. "Rushi can be trusted. She will keep your secret," Li Tianlan said. Dongqing Rushi suddenly smiled and rubbed her head against his chest. Li Tianlan's eyes were quiet and deep. Dongqing Rushi could indeed be trusted. But he knew that Dongqing Yueshan was also watching all this now. Jiang Shangyu had the Heavenly King heart. If this thing was used properly, it could bring Li Tianlan unimaginable benefits. But compared with these benefits, he paid more attention to Dongqing Yueshan. If he really married Dongqing Rushi, what would Dongqing Yueshan's attitude be? At this moment, Li Tianlan suddenly thought of a mysterious person. The heavenly son that existed but few people knew. Dongqing Huangtu. Li Tianlan knew the cause of Dongqing Huangtu's death. Qin Weibai told him that Dongqing Huangtu was finally killed by his beloved woman when he was besieged. If he married Dongqing Rushi, one day in the future would Dongqing Yueshan stab herself in the chest like that woman? And the woman who killed Dongqing Huangtu that year, Was it also because of the betrayal between different personalities? He had to test Dongqing Yueshan's true attitude. If the Lu family of Huading was the first bait, then the secret that Jiang Shangyu had the Heavenly King heart was the second bait. Jiang Shangyu was still looking at Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan said that Dongqing Rushi could keep a secret, which meant that Li Tianlan could also keep a secret. What do you want? Jiang Shangyu narrowed his eyes and said faintly. His heart quickly calmed down. Cooperation. Li Tianlan smiled. At least our positions are not in conflict now. Don't deny it. You can't sincerely surrender to Gu Han's Han, and I also want to destroy Kunlun City. Simply from this matter, you are a pawn in my hand and I can also be a pawn in your hand. No one will suffer. He paused for a moment, then continued, and you came here tonight to talk to me about this, right? Jiang Shangyu opened his mouth and said with a bitter smile, but I didn't expect it to be so smooth. At this moment he suddenly felt relieved. The secret of the Heavenly King heart was indeed enough to doom him eternally. But in Li Tianlan's eyes he must have more important value. That was the basis of cooperation. And when Li Tianlan felt that he had no value, Jiang Shangyu was confident that he would no longer be afraid of Kunlun City and Li Tianlan. I like to be honest. Li Tianlan said blandly, and it's good for both of us. Jiang Shangyu smiled. If you can survive the final maneuver, I will cooperate with you. We can slowly discuss the details at that time. Tonight is not suitable. Are you questioning my strength? Li Tianlan's voice was a little strange. You're very strong now. I've seen your fighting videos. If I'm not wrong, your body is very flawed now. Jiang Shangyu said calmly, your martial arts have reached the extreme, even far beyond your physical strength. Your body is very tight when you fight, which is enough to explain a lot. According to my estimation in terms of pure destructive power, you can even surpass Wang Xingxiao, but your physical strength is not as good as any of us. Not to mention Wang Xingxiao, even if Song Ci gives you a full blow, as long as she hits you, she can seriously injure you or even kill you. Li Tianlan looked at Jiang Shangyu and said thoughtfully, but I don't think she can hit me. You can't not make mistakes. And even if you don't make mistakes, what if you are besieged? Jiang Shangyu shook his head. He wanted to continue to say something, but suddenly found that the cruise ship was quiet. Jiang Shangyu turned around subconsciously, and his face suddenly became a little strange. In his sight, Wang Yuetong, who had been standing in the same place, moved. She saw Li Tianlan and then without hesitation she walked over step by step. Her footsteps were very light. But she was so brave. At this moment Wang Yuetong had no dignity or pride, but she had an unprecedented courage and firmness. She could still move forward after being treated so coldly. This was courage in itself. For a moment, everyone was a little touched, including Li Tianlan. Wang Yuetong walked directly to Li Tianlan. Her eyes were red and swollen, but they were extremely firm. Dongqing Rushi hesitated, took the initiative to walk away from Li Tianlan's arms, and took 2 steps to the side. Li Tianlan took a deep breath. He looked at Wang Yuetong, his eyes calm and a little cold. Wang Yuetong came over, hesitated, and finally reached out and grabbed Li Tianlan's arm. Chapter 310. Most people were looking at Wang Yuetong and a few people were still paying attention to Wang Xingxiao. No one knew how powerful the Wang family of Beihai was. This behemoth that had been passed down for hundreds of years had always stood at the peak of Zhongzhou State and the peak of the Dark World. This was a great family. Wang family of Beihai. This was something to be proud of. These 4 words represented dignity, honor, glory, and unfathomable. Wherever the people of the Wang family of Beihai went, they seemed to be the focus of attention. It was still the case. But the little princess, who could represent part of the glory of the Wang family of Beihai, lost her pride at this time. It was as if she had really let go of everything. Pride, face, and identity were all drifting away with the wind and rain. That was why her figure was so delicate, so petty. Being humble is also a kind of courage. His bravery moved people. Everyone watching this scene had a complicated look in their eyes. Wang Xingxiao suddenly felt very distressed. Perhaps he was a little embarrassed, but more than that he felt heartache. After all, this lowly and careful figure was his biological sister. Wang Xingxiao puts down his glass. Under countless gazes he instinctively took a step forward. Jiang Shangyu, who was sitting next to Li Tianlan but was observing the whole scene, had a flash of light in his eyes. Have you thought it through? Xianxia asked softly behind Wang Xingxiao. She was also looking at Wang Yuetong, and her eyes trembled as Wang Yuetong walked. He shouldn't do this to my sister. Wang Xingxiao turned around and looked at Xianxia with a serious expression. That was the seriousness of not hesitating to fight. Then how should he treat Yuetong? Xianxia asked straightforwardly. The question was simple. But it stunned Wang Xingxiao. Li Tianlong was very sober. Therefore he cut off his past with Wang Yuetong in an extremely cruel and even cold-blooded way. As this is the best way. It was also in the interest of the Wang family of Beihai. Wang Xingxiao could understand what he did. From his point of view, Li Tianlong's decisiveness was even more admirable than his indecisiveness. But looking at the scene in front of him, he somehow felt a little suffocated in his heart. Bastard. Wang Xingxiao gritted his teeth and said softly. Xianxia smiled and gave Wang Yuetong a deep look. She came over and held Wang Xingxiao's hand. No matter what Li Tianlong did, he was a bastard. No one was wrong except for the fact that they shouldn't have met that spring 3 years ago. Let's go there. People from the blizzard have asked me to meet them. They really want to be a member of your team. Let's not worry about Yuetong for now. Li Tianlong let Wang Yuetong hold his hand. His hands were cold. It was as if his heart, which had hardened, was only left with coldness. Let's talk. Wang Yuetong spoke again. With short hair and a long dress, she looked clean and delicate. There was a trace of pleading in her watery eyes. Li Tianlong's face was cold. He pulled back his hand and shook his head. I still have something to do. Wang Yuetong bit her lips and her face grew paler. She held Li Tianlong's hand tightly and lowered her head. She did not speak or let go, but kept pulling Li Tianlong's arm hard, as if she wanted to pull him to another position in silence. Li Tianlong was in a trance. Wang Yuetong's little trick, which was similar to cheating, showed the tenderness of a girl. The scene in front of him seemed to be familiar. Li Tianlong's body did not move. He was as steady as a rock. It was a silent contest. It was as cold as a knife. He cut a piece of affection into pieces and dripped with blood. I'll go over there and have a look. Dongqing Rushi suddenly said, I'll go back by myself later. Li Tianlong glanced at her and narrowed his eyes. Dongqing Rushi's eyes were rational and cold, with a clear hint of mockery in them. He was Dongqing Yueshan. Li Tianlong suddenly felt a little melancholy. He shook his head and said indifferently, It's up to you. Dongqing Yueshan nodded and turned to look at Wang Yuetong. Wang Yuetong did not look at him but held Li Tianlong's hand hard. Her beautiful little face was flushed. At first she felt extremely wronged and resentful, but she still persisted with the courage of not giving up even if her head was bleeding. Bravery was a kind of power. It deserved respect. Dongqing Yueshan sighed softly and turned to leave. Wang Yuetong quietly let go. She looked at Jiang Shangyu. Go away. Wang Yuetong suddenly said. Jiang Shangyu was a little stunned. He did not want to go away. He had not told Li Tianlong a lot of things, but Jiang Shangyu shrugged, stood up with a wry smile and left the corner. He walked for a distance, then turned around and looked back. In the dark and cold corner, Wang Yuetong still stood there, holding Li Tianlong's hand. Her long skirt gently rose on the deck, looking pitiful. The corner of Jiang Shangyu's mouth twitched. His father, Jiang Shan, personally contacted the Wang family of Beihai in order to let him marry Wang Yuetong. Jiang Shangyu had no objection. But unfortunately Wang Yuetong still insisted when the Wang family of Beihai agreed or at least acquiesced. Jiang Shangyu had pursued her for more than a year. In his eyes Wang Yuetong seemed to always be indifferent, reserved, polite, but with indifference that kept people 1,000 miles away, beautiful and noble. But now, the woman he wanted to marry stood in front of Li Tianlong pitifully and let go of everything just to talk to him. Jiang Shangyu did not fall in love with Wang Yuetong. But he felt a little uncomfortable in his heart for no reason. He showed a very sincere smile, but kept asking himself a question in his heart. Why? If you have something to say, say it here. Li Tianlong looked at Wang Yuetong, who was still stubborn and silent, and took the initiative to speak. Wang Yuetong's body stiffened and she gradually relaxed the strength in her hand. You. Wang Yuetong hesitated and whispered, Senior brother, don't you want me any more? Li Tianlong looked at Wang Yuetong quietly. His tone was calm and without any emotion. I can't afford it. He looked at the hand held by Wang Yuetong, sighed softly and said calmly, "Let go. Does it make sense to do this?" Wang Yuetong did not cry. She just held Li Tianlan's hand tightly and kept shaking her head. Why? Li Tianlan had a lot of explanations. Perhaps, as Jiang Shangyu said, he could explain this kind of thing. But what was the point? Explanation and decision were two completely different things. Li Tianlan's face twisted. At this moment, every picture he had with Wang Yuetong flashed in his mind. He had thought the memory was vague, but now he found it so clear. But what was the point? He kept exerting force in his palm, trying to pull his hand back, and his tone became completely cold. There is no reason. I don't like you. It's as simple as that. Yuetong, don't forget your identity. You are the little princess of the Wang family of Beihai. You are so noble. What you do now will only make me feel that you are cheap, and it won't change anything. Wang Yuetong's delicate body suddenly shook. In an instant her face was bloodless and her eyes were completely dim. She looked at Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan wanted to dodge, but he finally hardened his heart and looked at her. You think I'm cheap? Wang Yuetong's voice trembled a little. Yes. Li Tianlan said forcefully. Why are you so cruel? Wang Yuetong looked at Li Tianlan with empty eyes and murmured. Because you are cheap. Li Tianlan tried his best to keep his voice from trembling. Go. I think we'd better not see each other in the future. The separation under such circumstances. If they met again, they could only be enemies. Enemies of life and death. Li Tianlan seemed to have a knife in his heart. The sharp knife kept cutting in the depths of his heart, cutting his feelings into pieces. It was so painful but so hearty. Enemies. That was the most correct relationship between him and Wang Yuetong. Hatred could bury all the pain. Li Tianlan suddenly wanted to laugh. He kept his mouth shut and looked at the river attacked by the heavy rain in the night with crazy eyes. Wang Yuetong finally let go of his hand. At that moment, Li Tianlan clenched his fists tightly. It directly pierced his palm and blood dripped. Is this what you want? Wang Yuetong asked calmly. She was no longer crying or trembling. It seemed that in a very short time she had put away all her weakness. Yes. Li Tianlan said lightly. I waited for you for 3 years. Wang Yuetong laughed at herself. My father always wanted me to marry someone else. He introduced me to a lot of people, including young people in the Wang family of Beihai and people outside Beihai province. She looked at Li Tianlan, and the emotion in her eyes was so strong. It was almost paranoid love, but also like completely crazy hatred. That kind of emotion flashed in her eyes. The boundary was extremely blurred. Do you know what I said when my father introduced me to a boyfriend for the first time? Wang Yuetong looked at Li Tianlan and asked. Li Tianlan just looked at the Huangpu River in the night, lost in thought, and said nothing. I said, I have eaten at your place, so I can't say that I love you to other men, and I can't say that I want to. I want to be shameless. Wang Yuetong said softly. She smiled beautifully and absent-mindedly. At that time I always thought that you were my man, so I would persist. No matter what happened, I thought you would persist. Her voice gradually deepened, and the adoration in her eyes gradually deepened, turning into the most negative hatred. But I didn't expect that I would get such a result after 3 years of persistence. Li Tianlan, are you fair to me by being so cruel? At least you waited for the result. Li Tianlan's voice was cold. But this is not the result I want. Wang Yuetong said coldly, this is what you want. Li Tianlan smiled, a little self-deprecating, but he did not speak. This was not the result they wanted. But this was the best result. Li Tianlan had to bear the Li family's past. If he could not let go of the Li family's responsibility, he could not give Wang Yuetong the future she wanted. Wang Yuetong was the little princess of the Wang family of Beihai. Ever since she was young, she had lived a life of luxury and was doted on by everyone. She had no responsibilities, no pressure. She was high and mighty. She was reserved and proud. She already had too much, so she was qualified to dream about her future and her life. Her life was too sweet and perfect. But life was bitter. Li Tianlan's life was even more bitter. His future was blood and bones, conspiracies and betrayals, wars and compromises, glory and death, hatred and resentment. On the opposite side of his future, the Wang family of Beihai might be the most important role. The future had been determined. What was the point of being entangled today? Li Tianlan could not say that it was all for Wang Yuetong's good. He was too ashamed to say that he was just sure that tonight's result was the best. Because if one day they were really enemies in the future, at least they would not have more pain and fetters. He stood up. Wang Yuetong subconsciously reached out her hand and grabbed him again. "Walk with me," Wang Yuetong said suddenly. Her voice was completely calm. "No matter what happens in the future, at least tonight I want to give myself an explanation." She paused. But the sound of a broken heart rang clearly in her ears. "After tonight we are enemies." Li Tianlan was silent for a while and said in a hoarse voice, "Okay. I want to get out of here." Wang Yuetong pointed to the river. Li Tianlan said yes, held Wang Yuetong in his arms and directly rushed into the sky. Tonight's banquet meant nothing to him. It was the same for Wang Yuetong. Everyone saw the two people rushing into the sky without saying goodbye. Jiang Shangyu's eyes flickered for a while, but he said nothing in the end. And in another corner, Dongqing Yueshan stood alone in silence, looking at the direction where Li Tianlan left with a complicated look in her eyes. She could feel everything tonight. She could also know Li Tianlan's indifference to Wang Yuetong. Because the Li family and the Wang family of Beihai were irreconcilable. Dongqing Yueshan suddenly heard a sentence. That was Li Tianlan's evaluation of the Dongqing clan. "You deserve a good ending." Dongqing Yueshan looked at the night sky in a trance, and her mind seemed to be completely lost. The heavy rain by the river receded. Li Tianlan's figure landed. The curtain of rain quietly disappeared, turning into a pure land. He let go of Wang Yuetong in his arms. Wang Yuetong took the initiative to hold his arm very tightly. Li Tianlan walked forward in silence. The two snuggled together like a couple in love. But at the end of the road there was parting. "I know you don't want me to be stuck between you and the family," Wang Yuetong whispered. "Part of the reason," Li Tianlan said slowly, "but I don't want to be stuck between you and the Wang family of Beihai. Since it's not suitable, don't force it." This was an unavoidable problem. At least for now, neither Li Tianlan nor Wang Yuetong was qualified to solve the problem. "I dare to face it," Wang Yuetong said blandly, "but you dare not." Her tone was a little mocking, but her arm around Li Tianlan was getting tighter and tighter. "I didn't expect that the man I fell in love with would be a coward." Li Tianlan was silent for a while and then said self-mockingly, "Your taste is really bad." Wang Yuetong suddenly stopped. She pulled Li Tianlan and forced him to stand in front of her. "You really don't want me?" she asked softly. Li Tianlan looked at her quietly and said blandly, "We're over." "Why is it over? Why are you doing this to me? Bastard. I don't want it to end." "Why do you want it to end?" "I don't agree. I don't agree." Wang Yuetong directly broke out. She beat Li Tianlan's body crazily and cried bitterly. Finally she rushed up and bit Li Tianlan's shoulder. Li Tianlan didn't move or fight back. He just held her in silence and let her vent her emotions. After tonight all the feelings would disappear. Only hatred would be left. Wang Yuetong cried for a long time before she calmed down. "From tomorrow on we're enemies." She held Li Tianlan and whispered, "If you can't kill me sooner or later, I'll kill you with my own hands." "Li Tianlan, I hate you." Li Tianlan gently patted her on the back. "Kiss me again." Wang Yuetong raised her head in Li Tianlan's arms. She closed her eyes and whispered, "From now on we don't owe each other anything." Li Tianlan looked at her quietly. Wang Yuetong was very close to him but so far away. He suddenly lowered his head and kissed her. Wang Yuetong put her arms around Li Tianlan's neck. Her movements were very serious, very jerky and very wild. It was very fragrant and gentle but with an almost desperate coldness. The heavy rain on the horizon gradually subsided. It was a long time. The two separated in silence. Wang Yuetong's body trembled slightly and her cheeks were fiery red. She looked at Li Tianlan. The man she really fell in love with. Give up? Easier said than done. She still wanted to try again for the last time, even if it was a greater humiliation. So she clung to Li Tianlan tightly and said the most shameless words for the first time in her life. Her voice was very low and light, like the rainstorm that gradually stopped, fresh and misty. "It's already very wet." In an instant, all the suppressed emotions of Li Tianlan completely collapsed. He suddenly growled and held Wang Yuetong in his arms. Li Tianlan's body leaned against a car. He tore open the locked door in a frenzy and got directly into the car. A leather shoe was thrown directly out of the car. There was an exclamation in the car whose door was destroyed. Wang Yuetong gently held Li Tianlan. He was crying. But her smile was like a blooming flower, beautiful and unparalleled. At this moment she finally confirmed her destiny. She got the man who owned her. It hurt. But she was very happy. Chapter 311. The rain stopped. The night gradually receded, and there was a glimmer of light on the horizon. The morning sun leaped from the east to the sky, and the bright light shone on every corner of the city. After the rain, Huading became cold because of the moisture and then was replaced by noise. The most prosperous city in Zhongzhou state began to recover, and gradually became noisy and bustling. The sun shone through the dark film inside the car. Li Tianlan and Wang Yuetong, who had fought almost all night, were sleeping soundly in each other's arms. The sun shone into the car, making it hazy. The scene inside the car was charming and ambiguous, and the scenery was boundless. The sun spread inside the car. The dry and somewhat hot light shone on Li Tianlan's face through the film. He frowned, struggled for a while and finally opened his eyes. His eyes looked very sober, but deep in his eyes they were all blank for a moment. The roof. The spacious and comfortable seat. The skylight was as bright as the starry sky. Everything in the car began to come into view. A warm and delicate body clung to him, as if afraid that he would disappear, and her hands were firmly around his waist. His consciousness seemed to be gradually waking up. Li Tianlan looked down at Wang Yuetong in his arms. The little princess of the Wang family of Beihai still had tears on her face, but her beautiful little face was indescribably rosy and delicate. The flowers were not withering. Even in her sleep, Li Tianlan could still feel her peace and happiness. Li Tianlan was a little tired and confused. He sat up carefully, picked up the somewhat wrinkled coat and covered Wang Yuetong. After a long while he sighed softly. He was not very comfortable. But after a confused and crazy night, the restless desire that had been piling up in his heart for 3 years gradually subsided, and the refreshment in his heart completely replaced the physical discomfort. Li Tianlan raised his head and looked out of the window. Outside the window, Huading was prosperous and bright. The sun was reflected on the Huangpu River, and the river was shining. The cruise ship was moving on the river, busy and quiet. Li Tianlan looked around. On the left side of the car were skyscrapers rising from the ground. Pedestrians hurried in and out of the buildings, which seemed to drive the rhythm of the whole city. In front of the revolving door of a silver building facing the car, a quiet girl was standing there with a folder in her arms as if waiting for someone. The girl was dressed in a formal white-collar outfit. She was quiet and well-behaved, very attractive. Li Tianlan thought the girl looked familiar, but he couldn't remember who she was or where he had seen her. He subconsciously moved his body. As a result, Wang Yuetong, who was still asleep, also moved. She leaned over like a kitten and wrapped her arms around one of his legs. The insides of their legs were still stained with some blood. It was the purest dark red. Li Tianlan finally came to his senses. He reached out and pinched Wang Yuetong's face. Wang Yuetong's skin was so delicate that he couldn't bear to part with it. So he pinched it again and whispered, "It's dawn. Get up." Wang Yuetong slapped Li Tianlan's palm away in a daze and pouted subconsciously. "If we don't get up, we'll be surrounded. We're on the street now." Li Tianlan laughed. Last night's indifference and cruelty seemed to be gone with the storm, and his voice was very gentle. At such a close distance he could clearly feel Wang Yuetong's body temperature. The warm touch kept repeating a fact. The little princess in front of him had changed from a girl to a woman. And she was a woman who completely belonged to him. She belonged to him. Wang Yuetong's eyelashes trembled slightly, and her charming eyes opened reluctantly. In the quiet carriage the two looked at each other in silence. Wang Yuetong's eyes became sober, then became aggrieved and finally turned into bitterness. "Senior brother," she called softly. "Get up first. I'll take you to eat something," Li Tianlan said softly. Wang Yuetong's face turned red. She moved her slender legs and suddenly snorted. Her ruddy face instantly turned pale. Li Tianlan subconsciously wanted to ask, but then he seemed to realize something and turned his head away awkwardly. "It hurts. You pervert, are you trying to kill me?" Wang Yuetong, who was pale, pursed her lips and hammered Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan was even more embarrassed. Last night's lively night was still vivid in his mind. Li Tianlan's madness surprised himself. He was like a beast tearing the prey under him unscrupulously. Wang Yuetong went from obedience to obedience and then to resistance, but Li Tianlan's rude attitude did not change at all. He subconsciously looked at Wang Yuetong. Wang Yuetong's snow-white skin already had small bruises. Li Tianlan was a little embarrassed. After a long silence he forced out a sentence, "It won't be like this in the future." In the future? A smile gradually appeared on Wang Yuetong's pale face. Her delicate eyebrows and small nose wrinkled and she said fiercely, "There is no future. We are enemies in the future." She approached Li Tianlan with a snort and said lazily, "I'll kill you sooner or later. In the future you will be my woman," Li Tianlan said. His voice was calm and firm as if he was making a declaration after careful consideration. Wang Yuetong slightly raised her eyebrows, and suddenly there was a kind of indescribable charm and naivety in her. This was a soul-stirring charm that only belonged to Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan gently held her in his arms. Wang Yuetong's body stiffened and then she gently leaned on Li Tianlan, muttering to herself, "Tianlan, don't you think you are too domineering? When you don't want me it's useless for me to beg you. Now you want me but it's also useless for me to say anything. But it's my fault." Li Tianlan held her and gently kissed her ear. "Then you apologize to me." Wang Yuetong looked proud. "I'm sorry." Li Tianlan's attitude was extremely sincere. Wang Yuetong giggled and moved her body, immediately affecting the most tender part. She gently took a breath and rolled her eyes at Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan smiled gently and calmly. Wang Yuetong buried her small head in Li Tianlan's neck, rubbed her forehead against his chin and whispered, "I really don't want to talk to you. I've waited for you for 3 years and you treat me like this. Last night I said those shameless words. I've decided that if you still refused me last night I would definitely kill you and then I would die with you." Li Tianlan stroked her short hair and didn't say anything. "Don't call me cheap in the future. I don't like it," Wang Yuetong whispered. "I won't." "Well, you have to spoil me in the future and you must be good to me." Okay." Li Tianlan quietly listened to Wang Yuetong chattering in his arms. It seemed that in one night the old Wang Yuetong had come back. The former charm appeared completely on her. Her eyebrows and eyes were curved and her voice was getting more and more cheerful. Li Tianlan had stopped thinking about what would happen to the Wang family of Beihai. The grievances between him and the Wang family of Beihai might be irreconcilable, but at the very least Wang Yuetong should not bear them. Li Tianlan didn't know what would happen to him and the Wang family of Beihai in the future. But in the future, as long as Wang Yuetong didn't take the initiative to let go of his hand, he would continue to insist. His decision might be wrong. But wrong was wrong. Wang Yuetong, whose physical strength had been completely exhausted in last night's battle, began to struggle after a while. She kissed Li Tianlan on the face and said in a daze, "Tianlan, I'm so sleepy. Let's go get a room and let me sleep for a while." As she spoke, her hand began to fumble on the seat and she muttered to herself, "Where is the key?" "Is it in?" Li Tianlan said casually, but halfway through he suddenly felt that something was wrong. Wang Yuetong also realized something. The two of them looked at each other and found that this was not their car at all. They didn't drive at all. Wang Yuetong finally recovered from her trance, resentment and joy. She felt that the car she was in was extremely spacious and luxurious. She looked at the car carefully and even touched the seat under her. Her face suddenly changed. "Land Palace." Wang Yuetong's voice was full of disbelief. "What is it?" Li Tianlan said casually, "This car doesn't seem to be ours. I broke the door. Why don't we wait for the owner to come and buy one for him?" Wang Yuetong's voice was strange and complicated. She stared at the car blankly and said with a sad face, "Tianlan, we can't afford it." He was telling the truth. This Rolls-Royce, known as the Land Palace, was a custom-made model and the only one in the world. They couldn't afford to pay for the shell, not to mention the purely handmade interior. The Land Palace was known as the safest car in the world. Its body was not all aluminum, but made of an extremely rare alloy. The market price of this alloy was dozens of times higher than gold and it was priceless. Li Tianlong couldn't afford to pay for the door, which weighed more than 100 kilograms, not to mention the whole car. As for Wang Yuetong, who had almost fallen out with her family in recent years, she had no extra pocket money. The most important thing was, Wang Yuetong recognized this unique Rolls-Royce in the world and naturally knew who the owner was. She had been in this car before. Tianlong. Wang Yuetong poked Li Tianlong's leg with her small hand and whispered, "Let's run. Don't let the owner find us." Here, she looked directly out of the window as she spoke, trying to confirm where they were. But as soon as she looked out, she suddenly froze. Outside the window, the quiet girl who had been standing in front of the silver building had come over with a tall and thin middle-aged man. He was jumping up and down very lively. Li Tianlong was also looking at the girl. The more he looked, the more familiar he felt. "It's over," Wang Yuetong murmured to herself. The two, who looked like father and daughter, walked into the Rolls-Royce, known as the Land Palace, talking and laughing. The girl took out the key and opened the door. Bang! In the dull sound, the door, which was strong enough to resist the bombardment of missiles, was suddenly separated from the body and fell to the ground. The sound was dull. Li Tianlong reacted quickly and covered Wang Yuetong's body with his coat and Wang Yuetong's ragged skirt in an instant. Wang Yuetong was already stunned. At the same time, the father and daughter outside the car were also stunned. The girl looked at the car door that fell to the ground in disbelief and did not come to her senses for a long time. Li Tianlong braced himself and looked at the familiar girl. He took the initiative to say, "We are willing to compensate." The girl hesitated for a long time and finally saw Li Tianlong, who was almost naked, and Wang Yuetong, who was covered by clothes in the car. Her eyes suddenly widened. Li Tianlong. The girl's little mouth opened wide, and she looked like she had seen a ghost in the daytime. "Xinyan, please don't make noise." Wang Yuetong shrank behind the clothes and whispered with shame. "Xinyan." Li Tianlong suddenly came to his senses. "Han Xinyan." He finally remembered who the girl was. "What's going on?" the middle-aged man standing behind Han Xinyan asked. Han Xinyan stammered, "Dad, it's Yuetong and Li Tianlong inside." They are my friends." "It's them, Li Tianlong," the middle-aged man murmured. "Li Tianlong from East Emperor Palace?" He took 2 steps forward. From this angle he could not see Wang Yuetong behind Li Tianlong, but it was enough to confirm Li Tianlong's identity. A strange smile flashed in the middle-aged man's eyes. He looked at Li Tianlong and said meaningfully, "Young man, I think we can have a good talk." "Sure." Li Tianlong nodded. "But I need 2 sets of clothes." Han Xinyan shook her head subconsciously and curled her lips. "It's okay to have car sex, but you even want to smash other people's cars? You've gone too far."